Welcome to the XB2 podcast. We are now live on another Monday. Another sad rant because I don't like doing shows on Monday. But not my fault. Not my fault at all. I'm not taking the blame on this one. So I'm Randall Thor 19 because I realized I didn't introduce myself last week, which, you know, I figure everybody knows who listens to the show. But you're surprised at how many new people actually tune in from time to time. They're like, well, who the hell is this guy? But I'm Randall Thor 19.
I'm like that every week.
Yeah. And with me we have Jez Corden, Windows Central, managing editor or executive editor. I don't know. What's your title now?
Executive editor.
Executive editor.
Executive editor. And don't you forget it, bro.
Yeah. So we are here on this cold freaking day. Oh, man, it's cold here in Chicago now. Man, we went from kind of a hot, it was a hot summer. Fall was great, and now we're just hitting winter because I think what's the temperature right now? What is it outside? A nice balmy 27 degrees.
Balmy?
Yeah, balmy.
What do you mean by that? Balmy.
I'm trying to make I'm being sarcastic because 27 degrees ain't exactly balmy.
What does balmy mean? I've never heard that as a way to describe temperature before. Is that an Americanism? It must be.
Yeah, probably.
Balmy.
It is starting to get cold here. It is
What's
December.
that temperature in Celsius?
I wouldn't know. 0 degrees probably.
Mine it says -4 on my. Yeah, okay, that's below freezing, right? So where I am, it's a pretty toasty 45 Fahrenheit or 7 Celsius. So
that's good.
I got the window open.
I mean, dude,
man.
45 degrees. That's t-shirt and shorts weather. You know.
Yeah, no, I got the window open. I'm like, actually, I might close it because it's pretty noisy outside. It's windy. I don't know if you can hear distortion. Maybe I should close the window. But it's warm. Yeah, that's the point. We started doing weather report. I know it's, dude. I tell you, we've been doing. How many years have we been doing this now? 8 years.
In April it'll be 8 years.
So our anniversary is in April. No, you can tell we're getting old because we started doing weather reports at the start of the show. Now I feel like we never used to do that.
No.
That means we're getting old, bro.
We would point out like, hey, you know, today is super hot, or if it's super cold. You know, Chicago did miss out on. We did miss out on. At least Chicago did this like Arctic bomb that supposedly happened during the Great Lakes, where I don't know, did it drop like 40 inches of snow or 40 feet of snow or something? It was like extremely cold. We just missed out on that. Thank God. But it is starting to get really cold out there, and here in Chicago, we essentially you get the whole you know kit and caboodle, right? You get summer when it's really hot, and you get winter when it's really freaking cold, and all the good in betweens. So,
dude, Artemis in chat is calling you out. Stop crying, Rand. It was -25 Celsius the other day in Alberta, Canada.
Well,
so that's like
the problem is that you're in Canada. And that's a choice.
But dude, Kevin Owens is from Canada.
Yeah, Kevin Owens, he's a great guy. He's a great guy.
Yeah, Kevin Owens is my favorite so far.
You know, Jez jumped in the Discord call. We're getting ready for the show, and he's like, "I'm starting another podcast," and I'm like, "Oh, really? Because you do this one, you do your Warcraft podcast. What's your new podcast?" And why don't you tell everybody what your new podcast is going to be?
Yeah, talking to Paris Lily, none other than Paris Lily, about maybe doing a quarterly wrestling special podcast. Just to recap what's been happening in the world of wrestling over the last few months. You know, sort of like a retrospective. Because I talked to Rand initially, guys, about doing a Warcraft podcast, but Rand didn't want to. Rand didn't want to make a wrestling podcast with me. And because now I'm fully back on board with the Fed, it's time to take that obsession to the masses, bro.
Yeah,
but no.
Time to take that obsession to the masses 4 times a year.
4 times. Well, neither of us have time to do more than that, and even 4 times a year might be difficult. I really wish, man, I could just quit my job and just podcast all the time, and that could just be it. Like I do wrestling podcast, a Warcraft podcast, my cryptozoology and UFO podcast I wanted to do, and then some other random bullshit podcasts. I don't know. Do a cheese podcast. Who knows, man? But I don't know if we're quite on that level yet. But hey ho, there's still plenty of juice to get out of the world of Xbox, and we've got some topics to get through this week, and we're gonna do our best. It hasn't been the most news heavy week in gaming, I would say, Rand.
Well, I mean,
would you agree with that?
Thanksgiving week.
It was Thanksgiving.
Yes.
It was also Black Friday,
I was
Cyber Monday.
say, how was yours? But you worked because that's the reason we're doing the show on this Monday, is because Jez couldn't do the show Friday or Saturday because he was busy typing up Windows Central articles with links to deals the whole time. So poor Jez.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, it's a really important time of year for us. It's a double-edged sword because I don't really enjoy writing about deals, but at the same time, I do enjoy it when I find a good deal and think, oh God, people should know about this. You know, if it is a genuinely good deal. So I do like finding the good deals, even though it's kind of boring to write them. But it's also really important for the site because it's like this weekend can fund the site for months. So, you know, it's really important for the whole company. So, but on the flip side of that, it means I'm a bit out of the loop. I haven't been on socials much, although I find less and less people going on socials these days. Socials are a nightmare these days, but so I'm a bit out of the loop. You're gonna have to help me get up to speed a bit, but I'm hoping that usually what happens is it's like a mad dash to Cyber Monday and Black Friday, and then it's like like you can breathe, you can relax a bit, you know, and then start winding up and getting ready for Christmas and vacation and just hanging out and having fun and maybe catching up on the old backlog a little bit. So that's been my week. How's your week been, Rand? How was your Thanksgiving? Tell us, what is the Thanksgiving tradition in the Randall household?
Well, normally we we go and have a dinner, usually with whoever's in town. So, I mean, like last year it'd be me, my sister, my dad, maybe my mom. Sometimes, because my youngest sister is currently a traveling nurse and she lives out in California. And my younger brother, I'm the oldest, my younger brother is currently living in New Hampshire with his family. So,
are you the oldest?
Yes, I am the eldest.
I don't know why. I thought you were the middle child.
No. So,
but that makes sense.
My brother and my nephews were in earlier during the summer, if you guys recall. So they obviously weren't going to be here for Thanksgiving. Sometimes my sister will come in, but most of the time she doesn't. So it's usually just me and my other sister and my dad and maybe my mom. But this year, it was just me and my dad. So my dad's normally the one who cooks, as I don't really cook. And I told him, I was like, hey, you know, you don't gotta cook. I'm on my diet. Like, I don't need to eat anything. Like, I'll eat my regular food. And he actually, for the first time, we bought, like, our grocery store that is around here, Jewel, or for those of you who don't know what Jewel is, it's basically like a Mariano's, or I guess there's probably people who don't know what a Mariano's is. Safeway. It's a grocery store. I know because they're just like each of the grocery stores are different depending on, you know, the areas you live in, but they essentially sell like Thanksgiving dinner for $50. You get the
whole thing,
a turkey, and you get mashed potatoes and gravy that are already made. Right? So we actually did that, just me and my dad. So it was the first time we literally just purchased something, because there's no reason to make anything, and then whatever. So it was a lot of fun. And then I basically the weekend so far. I've been playing Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Which I cannot say anything about. I see my buddy
Neither of us can
Mike's
talk about it
book
right
reviews in chat. He says, "Howdy guys, hope you had a good holiday. Please tell me the Indiana Jones game is good. Thanks." I can't say anything about my experience about Indiana Jones yet, Mike. Reviews will be live on Thursday, I believe at like 7 p.m. Eastern. So I can't. All I can say is I've been playing it, and that's it. Can't give any impressions. Can't say anything else about the game until Thursday, when everybody else will have their reviews out, and you can see what your if it's a game you want to spend your time on. So that's basically been my weekend. Playing some Indiana Jones. What about you? I know you've been playing Indiana Jones as well, yeah? Or you've been too busy to play it because of how much you've been working?
I played it a little bit. Obviously, I've got the code. I mentioned on Discord that we're both playing the game. Not on Discord, on Patreon, that we're both playing the game. And I asked people on Patreon to drop some questions on Patreon about specific things you want us to answer, because you try to get everything to a review, but sometimes there's like things that you don't think about. So it's always nice to get a bit of feedback there. So if you are on Patreon, also that I put that for free. I think I put that on the free Patreon. So if you want to go on Patreon and have a look, take a look there. But I haven't played it as much as you, I don't think. And a couple of my colleagues are playing it as well. So we're gonna have hopefully a good spread of coverage there when it comes to it. I have been playing a little bit of. One thing I have been playing a little bit as well is Stalker 2, because it's had a bunch of patches, and I'm kind of waiting until it's more polished to get really into it, because I kind of want to get the best experience that I can out of it, rather than try and struggle through the bugs, because the launch build was pretty rough on Xbox. The worst aspect of it being the dead zone. The dead zones were completely broken on Xbox. So it was like you couldn't really control the game unless you had a Hall effect controller. If you had even the slightest hint of stick drift, you couldn't play it. So I was like, well, I could either play the PC version, and it handles fine on PC, with a mouse and keyboard. You can use mouse and keyboard on Xbox as well if you've got one for that purpose. But I thought I'd wait for more polish. But I did go in to test some of the patches, and the dead zone issue is now repaired, thank God. Insert fanfare noises here. So if you have been someone suffering through the awkward dead zone issue on Stalker 2 on Xbox, it should be fixed now. Also, what else was I testing? I had a bug with a quest that was just the NPC for the quest was stuck in the ground, so I couldn't finish the quest. That has also been fixed. So the fixes for Stalker 2 are coming in thick and fast, and I'm sitting there wondering, like, man, these guys are they're going hard on trying to fix this game. And they should be, in a way, because people have spent money on it and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I'm sitting there thinking, like, God, these guys, did they ever take a break? Because they dropped one patch and they dropped another big patch straight after it.
I think they said 650 fixes in the patch.
650 fixes in the first patch, and then they dropped another patch with a bunch of high priority fixes that the community was complaining about. There's a major quest in the main story which has a hard lock. You can't carry on playing if you get that bug. So they prioritize fixing that, which is good. But yeah, I'm still gonna wait a little bit longer before I play it fully. And also I've got Indiana Jones to play while I wait. So, but the game has done well in sales, and I think we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But that's pretty. It's so cool. So I am looking forward to seeing what it looks like when it's polished up.
Weird. I think my audio just cut out for a second, but it should be back.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did I cut out or just you?
No. I think it was just me. Because all of a sudden you started to come out my computer speakers and not my earbuds. So I don't think anybody.
Oh, weird.
I don't think anybody could hear what you said for the last minute, but it should be back.
Oh, my bad. Well, if people couldn't hear, just talking about Stalker 2 being patched up and getting loads
well, no,
of
I mean
fixes
they
and
heard
stuff
all
like
that.
that.
It was literally
Oh,
just like 30 seconds. So
okay.
I don't know. It was weird. You cut out, or like you started coming out of my computer speakers and not my headset, which is what I have.
What you have connected to?
Set up for OBS, so nobody can hear you.
Okay.
So you guys didn't miss anything important. So I know my buddy Maka91, who makes the best guides on YouTube, he's been loving Stalker 2, and I'm pretty sure he hasn't. He's not someone who's played the other Stalkers or like knows anything much about them, but he was telling me how much he's really enjoying the game, and I think he even tweeted that he thinks reviewers got it wrong regarding Stalker 2. So,
I think I wrote that in my preview. I said a lot of people won't get it. I wrote that in my preview, and I do think they're trying to cater to both audiences a little bit, because one thing they did do in the patch was they nerfed the mutants quite hard. So before, the mutants were like quite spongy, and they require a lot of ammo, and it was often like it became, I suppose, efficient to ignore the mutants and just run away. But that kind of robbed the game of some of its sort of, I don't know, the difficulty, which is kind of what it's known for. Is like having this difficulty curve, which really forces you to be careful with everything. You know, your supplies, how you approach combat scenarios, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I think they do want to cater to a wider audience. But that's why it's got difficulty levels, right?
yeah.
But even on the easiest difficulty, it's still quite a demanding game. I'm just playing on normal because I know. I don't have time to go through and try and struggle through it on hard mode. But even on normal difficulty, those Bloodstalkers, man, they are absolutely brutal. They turn invisible. They quite intelligently navigate around the environment and get behind you and then jump you and take off like all your health and stuff like that. Then it takes like several shotgun shells to put them down if you know, especially if you're panic shooting and not hitting them in the head and whatever. But yeah, the game's fantastic, and I think like if you can push through the, I don't know what the right word is there. If you can push through the sort of opaqueness of it at the start, you'll find a game that is just more atmospheric than anything else you've ever played, and you'll absolutely fall in love with it, and then you'll start wondering why all these other imitators like Far Cry and all these other games just feel plasticky. This is a game with so much soul, and I think when it's polished up, it'll be remembered as one of the best games of this generation. I really believe that.
That's definitely some high praise there, for sure.
Yeah,
I would imagine the game's going to be quite different a year from now, and then even like 2 years from now, 3 years from now than it was at launch.
Yeah,
so
I think so.
I don't know if I'll ever really get to it, but a game I did get to 3 years after it did come out was Cyberpunk, and I saw my buddy Mike talking about it in chat. He's finally playing it for the first time. He's 30 hours in, and it's a game I avoided for 3 years, not because of any particular reason. It was just because I remember you played it originally at launch, and you played it on PC and you loved it. Then there was a lot of complaints about the last gen versions. It was just a game I was like, I'll come back to this down the road, because it seemed like a game that needed some fixing. So when I played it this year with the Phantom Liberty expansion and, you know, the 2.0 patches and stuff, I mean, you all know how I feel about Cyberpunk. It's the best game of the generation. And was going back and forth between that being the game or Elden Ring, but I put like 120 hours into Cyberpunk. And even now, there's still times where I'd be like, you know what? There are some still side missions I haven't done in that game, and I'm like, maybe I should load up Cyberpunk and you know, kind of do some more stuff, do some more side quests. Because I did see it was announced that Witcher 4 is in full production now. So they've moved on. Cyberpunk was announced 30 million sales, which is very impressive. And they confirmed like an animated project for Cyberpunk, which probably most likely going to be on Netflix. But you know, do you think we'll see like a another like Cyberpunk game down the road, maybe after Witcher 4, maybe go back to that universe and tell another story. Because it sort of seems like I get the sense
it's confirmed.
Is it confirmed that there's going to be another Cyberpunk game? I know they're doing transmedia stuff, but okay, yeah, because I think there was supposed to be like a Cyberpunk multiplayer, which I think they.
Project Orion.
Okay,
the next
so they are doing
Cyberpunk 2077 is codename Project Orion, and in fact, I'll tell you a story.
Okay.
When I went to CD Projekt Red, was it last year for Edge Runners? I think it was last year, right? Or was it this year? No, it was last year. I went to CD Projekt Red last year for Edge Runners. There was a whole wing of because they did a studio tour, right? Which was awesome, by the way. They did a studio tour, and there was a whole wing which was blocked out for Project Orion, which is why I was surprised that it was like, they're talking about Witcher 4 being in full production now, when like they already had like a whole section of the place blocked off for Cyberpunk 2077 2. I call it Cyberpunk 2088 or something. But they are doing a new Cyberpunk. There's no way they wouldn't, man. The game was absolutely amazing. Like the cachet they've built up with that franchise after the drama, with Edge Runners and fixing the game and all that stuff. There's no way they're gonna let that lie. And like I wrote in my review, it will be remembered as one of the best games of the gen, and it is, in my opinion. Just like I was right about Sea of Thieves becoming the next PUBG. Right.
I mean. Right. I don't think it ever became the next PUBG, but Sea of Thieves definitely was really successful.
Okay, I might have been slightly off on it becoming the next PUBG, but it had something. It had something that, that they worked through and figured out. And Cyberpunk, I felt that about Cyberpunk. I was like, it's what is underneath all these bugs is fantastic. And if they stick with it, it will be remembered as one of the best games of the gen. And it is, for me, it is one of the best games of the gen, without a shadow of a doubt. But hey ho, don't listen to Jez. It's just a show, man.
I do remember when you did say the PUBG thing, and people. Yeah. And this was during a time. This was 2018, where, Sea of Thieves was not received very well, and you were like, "It's going to be the next PUBG." Now it didn't meet that critical mass of popularity. That PUBG did get, because dude, during the time of PUBG's heights, it was nuts. It was crazy.
PUBG is still huge. Like, nobody talks about it anymore, but PUBG is still absolutely massive, and it's well bigger than Sea of Thieves. Like I joke about it, but it's still way bigger than Sea of Thieves ever could achieve. Part of that is because it's on mobile too, like in the mobile version, which I think keeps it popular. And also because there's no other game really like it. But that was the kind of where I was coming from with those comments, is that Sea of Thieves, there was no other game like it. And, if they've got an amazing basis for something here that could grow into something really special, I think if Sea of Thieves had the early access tag when it launched, people would feel very differently about it. I really think that. But
maybe they would have.
Microsoft didn't want to do it.
Maybe they definitely would have. But welcome in, everybody. This is episode, I believe, 342 of the Xbox 2 podcast. Do us a huge favor. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't, if you're new, make sure to hit the little button. It's free, nice and easy. Do got some super chats here. People gifting. We got Scarcely Relevant gifting 5 memberships. Thank you, buddy.
Scarcely Relevant's the gift
always
hero,
dropping the gifts. We got Resin Force becoming a member and also dropping 5 gifted memberships. Thank you very much. We got Jimmy Cooks 25 becoming a member of the channel. Appreciate you. I dropped as a gift 5 memberships as well. So
how do you do that?
I mean, YouTube. I told you before. YouTube lets you gift 10 memberships to people a month. So I figured why not?
I don't know if I can do that on mine.
And Jake, we got a $4.99 super chat, says, "Good afternoon, gentlemen. I hope you all had a great holiday weekend." It was good. Surprisingly, the turkey and the mashed potatoes and the stuffing that the grocery store made was actually quite good, especially the turkey. But we also have the wonderful members of the Patreon with us as well. Gonna do some shout outs here for the Xbox MVPs. We got D-Big, Fluffy Bunny, iMike Zero, Tier, Shrapnel, Inner Machine, Just James 93, Jay Peltier, Holy Dark Death, Steve Stompy, 09C Mine, James Wiseau, Trickster for Trey, Will Hernandez, Battered Haddock, Army Dude 52C, Ryan Kipple, Foreign Object, RS Donks, Randall Thor 19, Silas, James Moore, Fantasticals, Katriox, Bright Tundra 1, Discarded Caboose, Justin Duell, Frank Mariano, PB Broking, Ace T and Madison, Governor Grimm, DZ Huffin, Wagerman, Achievement, The Scarecrow 121, Adam Bartolo, Darren Tropey, Prof JJJ, and Wolfgang KPZ. Appreciate all you guys for supporting us on Patreon. The question and answer thread is up. So if you got something you want to ask, drop it in there, and we will answer the questions at the end of the show, as we always do. And if you're buying something special for someone in your life, and you want to give them a hint about maybe you should clean up downstairs or whatever, manscaped.com, code XB2, 20% off, store-wide, and free shipping. Keep that in the back of your mind, because it's always available. We don't always do ad reads for them, but the code is always available. So if you're going to get something there, use the code. Saves you money and helps us out. So, yeah. Jez.
Rand.
Yeah. What do you want to start with? You want to start? I feel like Xbox listens to this podcast sometimes, and I know they do. People at Xbox listen to the show.
Do they?
Sometimes.
Shout out to the people at Xbox.
Yeah.
Hello.
Sometimes they'll listen to it and they'll be like, fucking 4 hours? What the hell's wrong with you guys? You know? It's like, yeah, but I don't think anybody... There are people who listen to the whole thing, but I mean, I think the average watch time, usually when I finish a show, is like 35 minutes. But I don't really check to see what it is afterwards. But I feel like they heard our discussion last week about Game Pass and Activision games, and we were talking about like what's the holdup? Why has there only been 5? I
think that's the number one question I get on Twitter is where are the games?
Yeah, because they set up this expectation, or maybe expectation is the wrong word, but when Bethesda was acquired, all the Bethesda games went in there that could right away. It was just a deluge of being like a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, good word.
And Activision's catalog is bigger. It's got it's definitely got a wider variety of stuff. And we were like, what's the holdup? Are they really going to just peter these out slowly over the course of years? Right? Because we haven't even had any of the older Call of Duties hit. Whether it's the ones from the Xbox One generation, let alone the 360 generation, right? And it's like, are they busy building PC ports so they can time them together because they view PC as a growth market for them? And we were just like, I wonder what's taking us so long. Is it just an integration issue? Lo and behold, on Twitter today, they started teasing that an Activision game would be joining Game Pass. And it looks like it is Crash Team Racing joining Game Pass in 2 days on the 4th. So
Crash Team Racing.
Yeah, so they put Crash Trilogy in Game Pass in August. And now in December, they're adding Crash Team Racing. And yet, there's still Crash 4. Because Crash 4 is not part of the Crash Trilogy. So at some point, you're going to have to add a Crash 4. I don't know. I don't know what to think of this stringing along way they're doing it. Is Crash Team Racing something that is like people are just like, hell yeah, give me this game? Does it drive that much excitement where it's like one game? I don't know. I honestly don't know what to think on this, and I thought it would definitely be more games more often instead of just like one little morsel. I don't know. What do you think, Jez?
It's well, yeah. I don't know if there's a lot of hype around Crash Team Racing, bro.
Yeah,
I mean, I do think Crash Team Racing has potential to grow into something that, could be something really special. Like we always talk about this. Make a kart racer that has all the Xbox, ABK, Bethesda franchises in it. Can you imagine a kart racer that was like on the quality of Mario Kart, that way you could play as Doom Guy or Master Chief, or someone from Call of Duty like Ghost, or all that kind of stuff. Like, bro, that would be awesome. But Crash Team Racing by itself, I don't know, not that awesome. But I have no idea why they're doing this drip feed. I mean, we've speculated. I mean, it's something I could potentially look into. But it's like I suppose one of the things we surmise or guess is that they want to manage the library. They want to manage engagement. They don't want people to be playing Crash Team Racing instead of a game that's got tons of microtransactions, necessarily. I don't know if maybe Crash Team Racing does have microtransactions, but it does feel like a very deliberate strategy, right? It feels like, it's not something there, it's not as a result of like they've got no choice. They are making the choice to do it this way. But I don't know what the reason is. So I guess I could potentially look into it and find out some decent answers. I have people who will like be quite frank about some things, and then other times they'll be like, I can't talk about that at the moment, or maybe sometimes they just don't know. But I feel like I could get us an answer for this maybe next week. I'll look into it.
All right, well that's good.
But how do you feel about it? Do you think Rand, and good people of Xbox 2 podcast in the chat, do you think they should just drop everything all at once like Bethesda? Should they just dump the whole thing in there and be done with it? Like one of the reasons, like we talked about it last week, I think, and I used the example of Angry Birds Classic, and Rovio was like, we got to delist Angry Birds Classic because you guys aren't playing the new Angry Birds. And I was thinking, like, if they put like Call of Duty World at War into Game Pass, and I think they have actually, but like if they put like, I don't know, some of the older Call of Duties in there, like Modern Warfare Remake or whatever, like is that gonna hurt the Call of Duty numbers or help the Call of Duty numbers? Like, are they scared about some of that shit? I don't know. It's interesting to think about what goes into those decisions.
Yeah, I mean,
but do you think they should? What do you think they should do? Is what
I mean. One, I don't. I'm talking about this because I think what they're doing is an interesting thing to speculate upon, about like the way they're handling it. I mean, do I particularly care and I'm dying for any of the games to hit Game Pass? No, I'm not, right? Either I played them or I own them, so it's not something that's like burning within me of like, oh god, I can't wait to play, X game or the Transformers War for Cybertron. It's like I played it on the 360. It was great. Would I ever revisit it like the Xbox One version? Maybe, but it's not something like that is like I'm dying to see. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of like, okay, Game Pass is, something that is Xbox is fully in on. They want to grow it. They have this huge back catalog of stuff they could throw in there. And, the Game Pass drops that they do seem to, like, I don't know, they don't drop as many games as they used to, and maybe that's just a sign of the times of the way, the subscription service is now, where they're going to rely on more of their own games, when before it was sort of, their first-party stuff was kind of ramping up, so they needed to rely heavily on third-party and indies to make a case for Game Pass versus their own games. But now that, Call of Duty's here and you are coming up in the next year with Avowed and all these other games that you don't necessarily need games from indies and third parties. Because we've seen a lot of games from third parties, kind of the bigger third parties at least, that used to drop their games in there 6 months or 3 months later. They don't do that anymore. So I'm just wondering, like, all right, are they just gonna pick a month here and be like, hey, here's a single game, here's this, here's that? But I do wonder if they're worried about the effect of, if we put these Call of Duty games on there, then those people are gonna be playing the older ones and not playing the one we want them to play. I know it's interesting considering that they just announced that the latest Call of Duty is the biggest ever, right? Like in term like the biggest ever in terms of like launch numbers and player engagement. What did they say here? Like they was like number 1 in hours played, number 1 in players, all these things. And even Matt Piscatella said Call of Duty engagement following the release of Black Ops 6 can only be defined by the term bonkers. We've yet to see anything like it in our engagement tracking data. So it's doing what people thought it might do, right? You have this influx of people. Like the game being on Game Pass kind of turned it into like almost a free-to-play title.
Yeah, that's something they said about Sea of Thieves back in the day was that Game Pass can give a game free-to-play like legs. So like if you improve access, then you improve engagement across the board. You know, more people talk about it, algorithms boost it, which makes more people talk about it, and then makes more people buy microtransactions and makes more people actually buy the game outright if they don't want to subscribe to Game Pass. Because their friends are playing it, everyone's talking about it. And I think Call of Duty this time around was definitely boosted by that. But Rand, it also helps that it was actually good.
Sure.
because for the longest time, the Call of Duty games have felt rushed. You know, we heard rumors about, which was it, last year's that was made in 18 months or something like that. I can't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but this Call of Duty had like a really long dev cycle, and you can feel it with the polish, the massive amount of features, the solid campaign, which tries a lot of new stuff from all accounts. I haven't played it myself, but you liked it, right?
Yes.
And you're a dude who plays the campaign. I'm a dude who plays the multiplayer.
I am a dude who only plays the campaign. Not many of us dudes out there that do that, but no. I am one of them.
I'm intrigued. I would be intrigued to know what the exact engagement of the multiplayer is, but I mean the single player. Sorry.
Yeah, how many people play Call of Duty and only play the campaign? I would imagine those numbers are a tiny amount. And I remember conversations last generation when there were people out there saying that Call of Duty should drop the campaign because nobody plays it.
Well, Battlefield did do that, didn't they?
Yeah, Battlefield. Battlefield did.
Rand needs the bathroom.
The Battlefield campaigns were never on par with Call of Duty. They never were good. They never were that good. I mean, the Bad Company ones are probably the best, but even still, like Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4s were about a generic military shooter as you could get. At least Call of Duty had Blatterfield. At least Call of Duty had style, substance, personality, charisma, characters, yeah. Which was why I think Bad Company.
This is a meme.
Bad Company was good because it actually had personality and characters who had charisma. But then you just kind of go to the generic military shooter and you lose that with 3 or 4.
Battle Riz.
Hopefully Vince can bring back the franchise.
Vince
Zappella. He's in charge of the Battlefield stuff.
So. I thought he was talking about Vince McMahon for a second.
You got wrestling on the brain, dude.
I got wrestling on the brain.
Get rid of that. Get rid of it.
Like what? Vince McMahon.
Get wrestling on the brain.
Yeah, that's bad.
It's
I just watched Survivor Series, dude. Before we went live.
I'm gonna ask for your prediction here from you right now. So we're almost in 2025. 2025 coming up here, end of the month, and I'm gonna end this whole like Activision Game Pass stuff with the question from you. Do you think in the next year we'll get the rest of the catalog dropped from Activision Blizzard, including the back compat stuff, if there is any, as well as the existing Call of Duty back catalog and stuff?
By the end of the year?
Do you know? I mean, the whole year. Do you think by the end of 2025 that the vast majority, so when I say that, 70% or whatever, will be on Game Pass? The old CODs, the CODs from the Xbox One, the Activision, the stuff that people assume are coming back, like the Transformers games or the Marvel games. Do you think that those will be added by the end of 2025?
I'm gonna say no. I don't think so. Maybe half.
Let me ask you this then: do you think they'll ever be added? Like, do you think Modern Warfare from the 360, which is in back and pat, will ever be added to Game Pass, or are those games something they just never do?
Oh man, God, I don't know, dude. I think some things like, I mean, one thing people often talk about is, will they add? The one question I get the most is not about Call of Duty, and although I think most people, I think like when we go beyond the core, I think Call of Duty is the one people would ask for. But the one I get asked about the most is Transformers. Those Transformers games, dude. And I often think like, if they were gonna add them, wouldn't they have done that already? Or do they want to do it to coincide with a movie release or something like that, or a game announcement? Like, because Hasbro's got a renewed interest in gaming right now, and they're kind of like, yeah, we kind of need to reconsider this whole gaming thing after Baldur's Gate blew the fuck up, right? So you'd have to wonder, like, they have to be considering making a high quality Transformers game on the scale of, like, you know, Baldur's Gate or Space Marine 2 or one of these other licensed games that ended up doing really well. So, and they've also themselves said they wanted to do this. But then Microsoft came out and said, we've done all we can with the back and pat stuff. So maybe there's a source code issue where they can't remove certain licensed music, because those licensed games often come with a bunch of other licensed content. And, you know, on the topic of licensed content, I completely lost my train of thought now. What was I talking about? Licensed content? Oh yeah, Forza Horizon 4 Rand is about to be delisted in 2 weeks because of all the licensed cars. So part of me wonders, like, is this maybe for some of those games, is there not maybe perhaps a licensing issue with some of those games? And, you know, Ryan in the chat, who spelled my name wrong, is upset and saying, why don't I call out that Microsoft broke its Game Pass promise with the Warcraft collection on PC?
I was gonna ask.
Called them out.
I was gonna ask you that. What's up? Is that because I was talking to Colt about it?
Yeah. So I did mention that. So pay attention. B, it's something I'm looking into. C, I also have to do other things for my job, so it's not always like, I can't always cater to everything that everyone wants me to do 24/7, especially during Cyber Monday and Black Friday, as we mentioned earlier. But it is something I'm going to cover, because there's another thing that annoys me about that whole Warcraft thing right now, is that Microsoft removed them from GOG, which I think is just brutally stupid. So, like, because they want people to buy them on Battle.net and whatever. So, like, why say you're going to support GOG in one breath with, you know, game preservation, and then pull the plug on another? Like, do they expect Warcraft 1 and 2 to do massive numbers? Because I got news for them, they're not. So, like, it kind of sucks that they did that to GOG. And it also sucks that they're not in PC Game Pass, or even, for that matter, console Game Pass, because I do think they should be supporting console and PC Game Pass on equal footing. So, yeah, it's something I want to do. It's on my to-do list. I'm a very, very busy boy. So forgive me for not getting to it sooner. But yeah, it's bullshit. I think it is bullshit. So, you know, when you sort of bringing it home to what we were talking about already, which was the lack of, you know, the lack of Activision Blizzard games in Game Pass in general, and the drip feed, which is irritating, and all that kind of stuff. And also the quirks around things like, where are the games not simultaneously launching? Where are the, you know, the promises that have been broken or been flexed, I would say, or stressed? Because, you know, I think some of this stuff is genuinely because of integration, but I also think it's important that we, you know, keep them on top of it, because if they're not communicating very well about why these games aren't there, that could just be like, oh well, no one cares about this, so we will keep breaking our promises because no one cares. So I am going to put out an article next week, probably the first thing I do after Cyber Monday. Probably first thing I do after this podcast, actually, is write up since it's fresh in my mind now, and it does fucking annoy me, especially seeing the good old game stuff, which was going to be my angle originally. But I do think it's just a matter of time and integration, and I'll try and get a statement out of Blizzard and all that kind of stuff. And Ryan says this ain't about WoW, it's about the RTS Warcraft. Yes, I know what Warcraft 1 and 2 is. I played them. Warcraft 3 as well. That's what I'm talking about. World of Warcraft is not on good old games. I'm obviously talking about the RTSs here. So yeah, but I don't know, man. As part of it's probably integration. Probably some of it's just Microsoft bit off more than they can chew, and they're probably spread really thin, you know. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't keep demanding better from them while we're giving them money, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, you know, they made sure that Starfield, or not Starfield, the RTS, StarCraft, came to PC Game Pass, right? And then Warcraft 1 and 2, which they released but didn't bring into PC Game Pass, or even, I don't think it's on the PC, the Xbox app on PC. I think it's just something you get on BlizzardNet, Blizzard.net, so...
Battle.net.
Yeah, Battle.net.
Philistine. But yeah, I genuinely think some of this is integration, but I think it's also like Blizzard's policies to some degree. Like, I think Microsoft's probably sitting there like, why did those guys remove that from good old games? You know, because that's gonna... I bet Microsoft didn't know that was happening, and that was a Blizzard thing that did that. But then you're gonna have like people being like, oh, Microsoft's stepping on our toes and making us do things we don't want to do. So I do think this is just about communication, getting everyone on the same page. And like I said before, you know, I've talked about my issues with when we were acquired, because we used to be a small company, a small startup, an indie. You know, Windows Central used to be an indie, and then we were acquired by a much bigger publisher, and we had integration issues for years, like 2 years, and we're just a small, shitty little blog. You know, we're not a huge video game company. So there is going to be integration issues, just being completely real about it. But at the same time, we're giving them money and they need to do better. So, will those Transformers games come? Will Call of Duty come? I think a lot of them will come eventually, but I think some stuff like Transformers, there's probably just hard licensing issues there that's going to stop that from happening.
Yeah, that's the kind of the little, like, you could say one of the strengths Xbox has, one of the reasons people really like them, is the ecosystem. The ability to play a game on your console and then immediately and seamlessly play it on a handheld or on your PC, right? That's what people really like about, like, you know, no restrictions. But then there's these little things that pop up from time to time where it doesn't, like, fit in, like why the why the Warcraft games aren't in Game Pass, or why does Diablo 4 not in the Xbox app on PC, but only available on Battle.net? And then, like, if you bought the expansion on Xbox or PC, you can't use it in the other one, even though it's like you can see your stuff. Or
yeah,
you know, like you get in some of these things. And then someone even asked me earlier, and I don't even know if this is true. I figured I'd ask you. He was like, so VOD's going to be in the Xbox app on PC. You'd be able to play it on Game Pass. But it's also going to be on Battle.net that you can play. But is it going to be if I wanted to play the Battle.net version of Avowed, do I have to buy it, or will I be able to play it through Game Pass?
That's exactly the kind of issues that Microsoft's kind of throwing into the ether with all this stuff. And, you know, like, when I talk about integration, I just really want to clarify here. When I'm talking about integration, I'm not necessarily just talking about tech. I'm talking about getting the teams on the same page from a strategic and communicative standpoint. So, like, you know, like the whole GOG thing. I don't know if Microsoft would even be aware that Blizzard had done that. But maybe there would be, you know. So integration is beyond just like making sure Battle.net communicates well with the PC app on Xbox, the Xbox app on PC, and vice versa, and all that kind of stuff. There's a huge amount of sort of little bits and pieces that need to be working in unison to make sure that they're offering a polished product here. And this Avowed stuff you're mentioning is like, that's just one aspect of it. Like, if I get Avowed on Battle.net, is it play anywhere? Does it gonna have on my saves? Do I have to buy it twice? All that kind of shit. Like, they're all their like. I know Microsoft would say we're experimenting, right? But all their experimentation that they want to do across everything that they do, so-called experimenting with, it's just confusing everyone, you know. And it's the lack of consistency is frustrating, confusing, and there's a lack of polish there to speak of. And Microsoft feels like, oh, it's okay, we can keep doing this shit. But I tell you, like, other tech companies wouldn't do that, not so openly. Like Apple wouldn't do that, and I don't even think Google would do that. You know, this is like when people say Microsoft isn't a product company. Shit like this is a good example of why. They test things, they beta test things in public. You know, it's like pick a strategy and then go with it. But instead, Microsoft's like, we'll try 10 different strategies publicly, and then we'll choose one later. Meanwhile, all of us who are customers, paying customers, we have to sit there trying to read the tea leaves about what Microsoft actually wants to do. You know, so it's kind of like comes back to what I was talking about. But yeah, we'll see. I'll try and get some clarity because it is confusing, and you know, being someone who does cover Microsoft, and you know, part of my job, I feel, is to try and bring clarity to what they're fucking doing. And half the time, it's like the hardest job in the world because I don't even know if Microsoft knows what they're doing. Like everything's an experiment these days, and it's just like pick a lane and stick with it. You know, are you using BattleNet? Are you using PC app? Are we using Game Pass? Are we not using Game Pass? Like what? Pick a lane, bro. You know, but I don't know. It's kind of fun to try and work it out. It's fun when you work it out, but it's not fun when everyone's yelling at me like what they're doing. Why don't you know what they're doing? It's like I don't know if Microsoft themselves know what they're doing. But yeah, we'll see.
We got Scarcely Relevant member for 57 months. He says, "Hey Rand, when you read this out, I am dropping 50 memberships for the people here." Damn. Well,
oh my god,
that'd be crazy if you do.
Who said that?
Scarcely Relevant Scarecrow.
Dude.
So,
he's the membership master, bro.
Yeah, he is. So, I wanted to talk a bit. I don't know. Like we've talked about this a lot, but the whole handheld situation seems to be, and it's even not even something I'm super enthusiastic about because, as you guys know, like I'm not really interested in a handheld right now. I'm not saying I couldn't use it, and maybe it'd be interesting to get one to see, like, oh, someone doesn't want one. Like, how does that fit in? Is this something I would actually use and prefer to use over my current, setup or whatever? But, you know, when we talk about this at the show, we're like, hey, Xbox is doing one. Phil had those interviews where he's like, hey, yeah, we're doing one pretty much. It's a few years away, right? Which then we got into the whole debate with Chad about what a few years means. Because to me, few means 4 or 3 or 4. But people were saying, no, a few could mean 2. I'm like, I guess it could, but usually 2 means, like a couple to me. But Bloomberg had put it out there straight up that Sony's working on a handheld to kind of compete with the Switch 2, with Xbox's handheld, but also that it's early in development and also years away. So it seems like the handheld wars are just beginning, Jez.
Yep.
And I sort of
the handheld wars have.
Yeah,
that's what Yoda would say.
Look what Steam did. Look what Steam did by releasing that Steam Deck, and then all these other Nintendo, manufacturers. Like you put out an exclusive today about what the Legion Go, I guess, or what the next Legion. What was the one you had some exclusive
the Legion
today?
Go. Yeah, I put out a little exclusive today for anyone who's watching. The Legion Go S is the next handheld from Lenovo. Legion Go S looks like it's going to be based on the Z2 platform, so this is like a next-gen handheld for them. But it won't be as powerful as the Legion Go, but it might have better battery life. So it's this is their affordable version. It's white. It's called the S, like Xbox Series S. So this could be video cards predicted. This could be $400. $399, which would make it like Steam Deck prices, which would be very impressive indeed. So yeah, it's hotting up, man, and this is all going to be announced at CES in January. So like, expect a shitload of new handhelds being announced soon. But I don't think the focus will be on power. It's going to be on battery life probably, but we'll see. But that sort of begs the question, like coming back to what you were talking about. Where does Microsoft and Sony fit into all this? Because neither of them have a handheld right now. Obviously, we got the Switch 2, which also had some leaks today, or at least some rumors. So, like, I don't know if you saw this,
rumors? What are the Switch 2 rumors? I didn't hear.
Yeah, so someone leaked apparently Switch 2 Joy-Cons. However, there has been some debate about whether or not they're real or just some 3D printed stuff. As was true before. And I think there was also a leak that said it was gunning for March, but then someone else said, nah, no way, it's coming in March. So there's like, people are desperate for Switch stuff, man. They are desperate.
I mean, they know it's got to come sooner or later.
Yeah.
And it's like you didn't release it in the fall, so spring's the obvious choice, especially with how the last... the console, I think the console Switch 1 released in March.
Holy crap.
Yo, scarcely relevant with 50 gifted subs, the man of his word. Thank you. It's crazy.
That is nuts. I don't think I've ever seen... Has he done 50 before? I'm not sure if I've seen 50 gifted subs. And if I have, it was probably scarcely relevant. That's amazing, dude.
So, I kind of just forgot my... my train of thought there.
Yeah, we were talking about handhelds.
Yeah, the handheld situation.
Where Sony and Microsoft fit into all this.
That's the thing. It's like, well, they made sure to mention that it's possible the PlayStation handheld doesn't come out, right? Because we had mentioned before there were handheld prototypes for that during the Xbox One generation that existed that they just didn't use. Sometimes you build a product that you think you're going to do, and actually we're not going to do it. But with how much people are loving handhelds and the resurgence it's seen, especially with Steam, because Steam has all PlayStation exclusives and all the Xbox ones, and it's so it's like, okay, so we need to do this. This is our market that we need to be in. I just sort of wonder how both Xboxes and PlayStations would look. What is a PlayStation handheld? Is it just a portable PlayStation? I know there's some people that are like, well, you got to make games exclusively for that handheld, which I don't really think people are looking for in this day and age. Where I think people just want a portable PlayStation. I think people just want a portable Xbox, and not necessarily like, oh, I can bust out my iPhone, put my backbone on there, and play it. They want an actual form-fitting handheld to be able to use. And it's like, well, what would Sony do, and what would their vision for their handheld be versus what Microsoft is going to do and what their vision is going to be? Because you can imagine a scenario with Microsoft where, okay, it plays all the Xbox games, right? Plus like their back compat stuff from the OG Xbox and the 360 and the Xbox One and the current generation. Maybe even having like Steam available on there or Epic, so not only could you play your Xbox games on this device, but also play any of the other games that you own from Steam or any other store, to make it like, oh, I can play all this. You'd have Game Pass on there, so you could be able to play any of the stuff that's in Game Pass. You could stream probably like the next generation of games, because the hardware is only going to be so good, right? So like, you probably wouldn't be able to play native next generation games, but you probably would be able to stream them. So like, you could see like maybe Xbox would offer more options, where like PlayStation, I definitely feel would be like more locked down. This plays PS5 games, PS4 games, and maybe a smattering of the older stuff, but it certainly wouldn't play like any like PS6 games. At best, it would be able to stream them. But it'd be just a PlayStation you take on the go. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see how far along both companies are and what their internal thinking, are on both of these products and when it would actually release. Because you're probably going to come up against a Steam Deck 2 at some point. Switch 2 will be out for a couple years by that point and probably ruling the roost when it comes to handhelds. But I guess for anybody in that market that's really into handheld, you're probably going to be overjoyed because you're going to have your pick of the litter and competition among the manufacturers of there's so many options to choose from. Each one's going to have to make their own device special, unique in a way, whether it's more power, whether it's different features, because when you have all these different options to choose from, why am I going to choose that one when this one over here, right? So you're going to have companies fighting on price and performance and feature sets and stuff. It could be an interesting time for the market, and in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I wonder about is that, openness factor, because like you say, Sony's going to be locked down, right? They're going to lock it down, and if they lock it down, I mean, that's a good thing for them because it means they can subsidize the hardware with the software and make it cheaper, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if Xbox doesn't lock it down because they want to be super open, does that mean in order to keep that device profitable, they have to come in more expensive? Then you have to pay for that openness. And then does Microsoft not just price themselves out of the market by doing that? Because at the end of the day, how many people actually care about openness when it comes to their Xbox games and stuff? But then, I don't have the data. I don't know how consumers feel about having open devices in that market. And I'm not sure if Microsoft does either. Obviously Steam Deck is quite popular for the market that it's in. But at the same time, it's not easy to put other stuff on that. The experience with Steam is so good. Half the time, it's kind of like, well, why would I want to go outside of that? And maybe you will go outside of it for certain games like Epic Games Launcher, so you can play Fortnite, or Hoyoverse Launcher, so you can play Genshin Impact. You can do it. You have to jump through some hoops, but for the vast majority of games, Steam is just fine. And because of that, Steam can make those things very competitively priced. They are pretty cheap. They're very affordable. And especially if you compromise and go to a low-end model, right? So for me, I'm intrigued about what business model Microsoft will go with. Like how will openness, Microsoft's desire to go open, like Phil says, will that just hurt the price? And thus hurt Xbox fans in the process, because it'd be like, oh, well, if we want to get our device is going to be more expensive because Microsoft's chasing an audience that doesn't exist again. Do you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of facets to this, and I'll probably write on this soon and about all the different things to look out for when it comes to the Xbox handheld and all the things Microsoft's probably thinking about when they're building this stuff, because that could go so many directions with this. So many different directions.
I gotta mention it because he's kind of sulking right now in chat, but Special Nick is here. And he doesn't like it when people don't acknowledge his presence, right? Because he's got an ego on him. Special Nick has an ego, and he wants it to be when he comes into a chat, he gets acknowledged. So
you mean like the only tribal chief?
I guess so.
The original tribal chief. Acknowledge me.
Yeah, so basically...
I didn't acknowledge you, Nick, because I'm playing Call of Duty.
So I saw him say something in chat, and I'm just like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let him stew in his juices, right? and then he's like put out this other...
Are you bullying Nick?
Yeah, I'm bullying Nick. And also, I got to give a shout out to... Gaz. Mr. Septic Sauce is here as well. What are you doing, Gaz?
In the house.
What are you doing, Gaz? But
Gaz go live on a Monday. We haven't scuppered Gaz, have we?
No, Gaz.
Oh no, we're scuppering Cole.
Yeah, Cole will be upset. Cole will be mad that we're not actually live during his show, but we're live before his show. He'll be very mad.
Cole, like, I had to apologize to Cole because we moved our show to Monday again. And Cole was yelling at me. He was swearing at me, cussing me out, threatening me, sending me death threats and stuff like that. I couldn't believe it. I was like, Cole, bro, we're not even on the same time as your show. But Colt was so pissed, dude. I thought he was literally gonna like reach beyond my screen and strangle me, dude.
I know, right?
So, Colt's a scary guy. You know, he's like 7 foot.
No, he's
like 7 foot tall, bro. He's like 7 foot tall, bro. He is. He's 7 foot tall, and he's ripped. He's ripped as hell. Colt's a scary dude, man. He will kill your ass, bro. What am I talking about? Oh no, we don't know anymore, Rand.
We definitely don't know anymore.
We don't know anymore.
Yes,
yeah,
we don't.
Colt's gonna swing a guitar axe into my head.
Also, Jez is kidding.
Yeah, I'm kidding, guys. Colt would never do that. He's a very lovely man, except for when you cross him, and then he will beat you to death with his gigantic club-like fists. You know.
Right. We got Moses with the one.
You know, he's a black belt. He's a double black belt in jiu-jitsu. Colt is.
Oh, is he now?
Did you know this? Yeah, he's a double black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Colt is. He's won medals and shit for it. So don't mess with Colt, man. He will kill your ass. I'm telling you, bro.
Yeah.
He was also in he was also in the CIA, I heard.
The CIA?
Yeah, he was a CIA agent. He knows 50 different ways to kill you with a pencil. Colt does. Dude's scary, man. He's scary, bro. Hello?
Yeah, I'm just Colt's gonna turn into this and be upset. You gotta be careful.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You gotta be careful, bro.
Definitely. No wonder Gaz left Colt's show. He's beating up Gaz, and Gaz couldn't take it anymore. Yep. It was like, I can't do the show on Mondays. We got Moses with the 199 says, make Halo and Battlefield great again. Well, hopefully they will be really good with their next iterations. William with the 2 says, will Xbox fans doom or cheer post TGA announcements? I guess it depends on the announcements. I still recall a couple years ago when they didn't make any announcements, people lost their minds. Remember 2 years ago? Everybody thought they were going to. It was 2022, I think, because they had delayed Starfield and Redfall, and there wasn't much that year, and people thought they were going to show up to the TGAs with some big announcements, and they didn't. And it was because they had their own very first Dev Direct happening the next month. And last year, they had a big blowout at the TGAs last year. It was huge. It was like another Xbox show, right? You had Blade revealed, which was a fun time because Arcane making a Blade game? Hell yeah. Although you got to wonder about Bethesda doing licensed products at this stage. It's like, okay, so Wolfenstein or Machine Games doing indie, Arcane doing Blade. Is somebody else doing another licensed product? Will they go back to that? Because I sort of feel like those were kind of worked out before the acquisitions. And would that something that continue after the acquisition? Maybe it makes it easier with their multi-platform strategy. I don't know. Kojima was there with OD, and Hellblade 2 had a big presence. So will that happen again? Will we see a new Fable trailer, a new South of Midnight trailer, another trailer for Doom the Dark Ages, something unannounced, like a Contraband or something? Or are they just going to bide their time and wait for the Dev Direct like a month later? Not sure. Will they tease hardware? Like a controller? Maybe, because there's the Tom Henderson, or not Tom Henderson, Tom Warren's tweet about, this is an Xbox. Like, what does that mean? And I think Tom knows. The question is, whenever that's supposed to get revealed, because he's like, hey, this will make more sense soon, which you memed with the cats and cow pics, right?
Spinning cat.
Is that something that's going to be shown during the TGAs where now people are like, okay, now we get why this is an Xbox? Which, does that involve third-party hardware? Like, would they announce, hey, guess what? Here's a third-party Xbox made by Samsung. Go get it now. And then it's like, oh, okay, so this is an Xbox. Or is it a game that's going to be announced? Like rumors of the Forza Horizon 5 stuff that supposedly had a port that was delayed. and they're waiting for it. The Gears collection rumors that always keep on going around. There's like, it's like, oh, so Xbox really means no red lines. They just announced Gears collection for PlayStation 5 at the Game Awards. Like, I don't know. I guess it's one of the things you just need to wait and see what happens, and if anything comes of it.
For my money, I've been told not to expect anything major, but at the same time, you just don't know, man. You don't know like what could be top secret. So like for me personally, I'm not getting super excited about Xbox announcements at the Game Awards this year, but I would advise against getting excited for Xbox and the Game Awards in general. But there might be some cool. I'm hoping for at least a couple of cool small snippets here and there. Like again, I mentioned on the other week. Like I got this weird rumor that Microsoft might be announcing an accessory next month, maybe. But I also don't know how true that is. It's sort of the vaguest of rumors. So I think that's probably the most you can hope for. But I don't know. We'll see. What are you not? I suppose you're not expecting anything major.
I don't know what to expect. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe Special Nick knows.
Yeah, and didn't Nick leak all the Fortnite stuff again?
He is a Fortnite leaker.
Damn. Why is Nick always ruining people's plans, bro? I mean, Epic Games is a small indie company, and Nick's just out there ruining their marketing beats, leaking all the shit. It's mean, bro.
It's very mean. Anyways, we have Scarcely Relevant who says, "Someday, Rand, you'll take me at my word when I say it." I mean, I always take your word when you say it. Why wouldn't I? And we have James Weiser with the 1999. Haven't been live for a while, but don't worry, I'm always lurking in the background. Spotify. So, how's indie? You'll find out on the on Thursday. So, what do you want to talk about next, Jez? Let's see here. What we got?
Up to you, buddy. Call of Duty. We already talked about Call of Duty.
You want to talk about the Tencent game that is copying Horizon Zero Dawn?
Oh yeah, I saw this. What did they call it? It had a funny name. It was like, really?
It's called Light of Mortaram or something.
And isn't it like literally the musician or art director from Horizon Zero Dawn working on it? I think of all franchises to copy, why that one? I have to ask. Is it that popular? Is Horizon that popular? Rand?
Is Horizon that popular?
My internet disconnected.
I mean, Horizon is popular. I wouldn't say it's their most popular game. I mean, clearly Sony has very high expectations of it because look how many games we've had in the Horizon franchise, right? They did a Lego version, for Christ's sake, right? We haven't even gotten a Lego God of War or a Lego Spider-Man, right? We got the 2 sequels that both had DLCs. We have this Lego version. They were making a TV show at Netflix that I think got canceled because showrunner stuff problems. And I mean, the head of PlayStation Studios is literally the former head of Guerrilla Studios. So you can definitely tell that Horizon is very special to them. There's also the rumors from like Jason Schreier that their next game is a Horizon co-op online game, and that Horizon 3 will be even after that. So like when you look at like the breadth of like Sony's strategy with their franchises, they're definitely doing more things with Horizon than they are with, Last of Us or God of War. So just clearly based on that, you can say, well, Sony values it really highly. But we're also in the era where we just witnessed Nintendo sue the shit out of Pocket Pair.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. It wasn't for
because the Pokemons look similar. It was because of like game design patents that they filed after that game came out, which is kind of spooky.
Sickening,
but
actually.
This one just, it looks like, you know what this reminds me of? Elon Musk came out last week and said that too many billion-dollar corporations own video games, and he wants to create a gaming studio owned by his own billion-dollar corporation to make AI games.
And he also joked about buying Hasbro.
Yeah, I joked about buying Hasbro, but in my mind, when I think of like ChatGPT, make me a game, it would spit out something like that, where it takes like something existing, like Horizon Zero Dawn and the machines, and then it's basically like, oh, this is like the AI version of Horizon, where you can tell it's copying already existing property to the point where lawyers might be getting called into the offices to talk about, right? And it's probably going to be a mediocre as fuck experience. I don't know, like it sort of seems like Gorilla, like they asked Gorilla for their homework, and then Gorilla's like, well, don't copy it word for word, and then they did, right? Or maybe they changed one answer to get it wrong, because it's like how blatant. But I mean, I guess this is this is Tencent. I think it's a. I'm not sure where the dev is. Maybe they're from China, where like copyright laws are whatever, right?
Well, this is the thing. Like, no one's ever going to sue a Chinese company because a Chinese company is going to be protected by the government. So, like, you can bet your ass if Palworld was Chinese, there's no way that Nintendo would even have a leg to stand on. They'd be laughed out of the court, But it's different when it's homegrown companies and stuff, especially when you don't have very strong patent laws or competition laws, and South Korea has this issue as well. Like South Korea is basically like fully controlled by Samsung, right? You can't go against Samsung in South Korea. They own like 20% of the country's GDP. And there's all these weird corruption things going on with Samsung in that country. I'm not necessarily saying like Nintendo enjoys a privileged position in the Japanese judiciary system, but I am saying that there's probably it would be a different scenario if the shoe was on the other foot. And to be fair, that's true in America too, in the West. Like Microsoft can, sometimes just drag out legal battles with their money, and in the end, and in some countries, the legal landscape allows for that kind of thing to happen. But I don't know. It's all academic when it comes to Horizon being ripped off, because there's nothing Sony can do to stop them. Absolutely nothing. It could be 1-for-1 copy remake with just a different name. There's nothing that could do to stop them. It'd be interesting to see where it goes, but my guess is nowhere. Even though it is the most obnoxiously blatant ripoff. It's obnoxious, man. And it makes me wonder, like, what's Tencent going to do, like, if, like, say for example, the next Halo game really blows up and it's really good, or the next Gears game really blows up and it's really good, and it enjoys some sort of mainstream appeal and cuts through. Are we going to see Tencent knockoffs of those franchises? Interesting to think about. Maybe this is the first glimpse of Tencent's new global strategy. Is just making knockoffs of existing games, but doing it cheaper.
Yeah, I don't know. I saw that, I was like, Jesus. Okay. Speaking of another,
it's bad, dude.
Yeah, speaking of another sci-fi game, a game that hasn't released and doesn't look like it's going to release, but a couple ex-Mass Effect studio people's studios recently kind of all closed. So yep. Casey Hudson studio, like Humanoid Origin, that was building a AAA sci-fi new IP, they shut down. And then it was like a week later where I'm blanking on the name, but someone else's
Mike Gamble, wasn't it?
I don't think it was Mike Gamble. It was somebody else.
Not Mike Gamble. Did it begin with M, though? I don't know. Maybe someone in chat.
Yeah, but it's like two of it's one of these situations where we talked about the idea of all these new studios that popped up during the pandemic, where money was flowing for investment, and suddenly everybody started to like, I'm gonna build my own game studio, and a lot of those haven't released a game yet, and a lot of those they're starting to like run out of funding. That's what happened with this game. It's like, oh, we kind of ran out of funding, so we have to pause production. And then, it's like, they're not going to find funding. Casey Huston's team had to be let go. A lot of these studios built during that time, they're just going to get to the point with their investors where they're just going to be like, yeah, sorry, we're not throwing any more money away. So I don't think this is going to be the last one of these announcements where you see a studio that was announced in the last couple years decides, you know what, we're not done doing this anymore.
I'm interested what because Mike Morhaim's studio Dreamhaven, they just announced that they're publishing an indie game, and Mike is ex Blizzard, right? So he sold Blizzard to Activision, and he's probably got a ton of money from doing that, which means he can self-fund it for a long time. But you have to expect like Dreamhaven probably has like outside investors as well. And I think a lot of the venture capital for those kind of things has dried up now since the pandemic, and there was all this hype around investing in game studios. All that investment money is now going towards AI startups. So all those hedge funds and all those companies and venture capital banks and stuff like that, they ain't throwing any money at gaming now. They're throwing all their money at AI. So the money's dried up, and a lot of these studios that were set up during the pandemic using venture capital that was flying around because all these studios were experiencing massive growth, all that money's gone now. So like this, it's like you say, this ain't going to be the last one we see close up shop. The market shrunk, the money shrunk, and this is what happens in those situations.
Yeah, and the studio was called Worlds Untold, which was formed by ex-BioWare veteran Mark Walters. Backed by NetEase.
I knew it was an M.
Yeah, and they were...
NetEase has reduced its investment quite a lot, because NetEase also just closed the studio that made Visions of Mana. And the lead dev of Visions of Mana went back to Square Enix. So that's kind of a happy ending, sort of. But yeah, it just goes to show how a lot of companies are downsizing. We had the Microsoft layoffs, and Sony's had layoffs, and pretty much everyone's had layoffs. Even the Xbox 2 podcast is having layoffs. Rand, you're fired.
All right, well, later, guys. Jez
I'm replacing you with Special Nick.
Oh God.
No, I would never do that. Don't worry, Rand.
Are we really gonna replace me with Special Nick?
Nah, I'd replace you with an AI bot, probably.
I mean, it would be just as good, most likely.
Yeah, clone your voice, just replace you with a bot.
Oh, thinking about that, someone did message me. Basically, he was like, "Hey, can you sell me all your IP rights to all your videos and podcasts, and I'll give you a sum of money?" And I'm like, "Sure." Like, I need Jez's approval. I'm like, he doesn't matter.
What?
So I sold your voice and your voice to somebody.
Gee.
Yeah, and it was for $50. So I thought it was, you're not gonna mind.
Yeah. $50?
Yeah, $50.
Surely your channel's worth a bit more than that.
No. I mean, I didn't.
It's $30.
Yeah, like for my stuff. Yeah, no, I sold it for a lot more. I sold it for like $500,000.
$100,000? What are you gonna do with that money?
I'm kidding. But yeah, it's like, oh, by the way, Jez, I sold the rights to your voice to somebody, and you'd be like, huh? Can you do that? I guess so.
I mean, it's a weird world we're living in, bro.
Yeah. Speaking of, and that's necessarily a weird world, but the story that kind of won't go away here, because you had reported it before TGS about the Final Fantasy whole slate coming to Xbox at some point.
Slate, baby.
And Crystal, the Final Fantasy 1 through 6 came to Xbox. And what is it called? Crystal Collection, I think, right? Crystal Chronicles?
Pixel remasters,
yeah. But everybody's waiting for Final Fantasy 16 or the Final Fantasy 7 remakes, and because those didn't happen, a lot of PlayStation fans called you a damn dirty liar that just makes shit up, that you're grifting for Xbox, even though that word seems to have lost all meaning recently.
Yeah, sure has.
Anybody that disagrees with somebody is now grifting. Like, oh, you disagree with me about this game? You're a grifter. Okay. But man, the way these producers and directors of these games talk, it's like they're hinting that these versions of these games will be coming to Xbox sooner than later. I mean, we had them talk about Final Fantasy 16 a little bit ago. And now we actually have, the director of Final Fantasy 7, director of Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, saying that Xbox is great and wants to see the trilogy on more platforms. And he says, quote, "In terms of Final Fantasy 7, there's nothing really we can say at the moment, but certainly I do want to bring Final Fantasy 7 and the remake series to as many players out there as possible."
It's coming. It's coming. When I said the whole slate, I meant it. The whole slate of Final Fantasy stuff is coming. It's just a matter of time, And it's annoying saying things like that sometimes because, like, over a long enough time span, any prediction is probably going to pan out. But it's also like, well, it's just true. It's just fucking true. The whole slate's coming, and Square Enix themselves have basically said it. If you've got content sitting there that's doing nothing, that's based on Unreal Engine, that can be easily ported to other systems that hasn't been sold there before, and you can make some easy money. Why? In what universe wouldn't you do that? It's not a controversial thing that they're doing this. They've said it themselves. It's happening. Deal with it, I guess. But you've played Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yes.
You haven't played Have you played 7
Not
Rebirth?
I haven't played Rebirth yet.
So are you gonna wait for the Xbox version?
No, I'll probably play Rebirth sometime next year. Because
on PlayStation?
Yeah, I own it on PlayStation. I'll probably play it there. Because I don't expect Final Fantasy 7 games to come to Xbox for a while. Like, I expect Final Fantasy 16 to come to Xbox next year. I don't expect the Final Fantasy 7 games to come to Xbox until after the third game's out on PlayStation.
Yeah. I think it's, fair to assume that they have got some kind of exclusivity over the trilogy of games. But I think, like, 17 is definitely coming. 16 is going to come sooner than 7. And, who knows what else? Maybe we could see an expansion of Xbox Play Anywhere Final Fantasy games, because I did notice the other day Final Fantasy 7 on Xbox PC app was on sale, but I also noticed it wasn't Play Anywhere, so I was like, well, I ain't buying that. If I ain't on Play Anywhere, I ain't buying it on that store. But it seems like Square Enix and Microsoft have got like an expanded partnership right now, I'd say, and there's going to be a lot of benefits, I feel, for Xbox fans, which is only a good thing, especially as long as we've been waiting for it. It kind of sucks that Xbox is always like in this position where we have to wait and we have to get things second or last, if at all. At least, I mean, most games come day one, so like, but like that's the thing. When things are like perfectly balanced, it only takes a couple of things, to tip the scales, right?
Yeah. It only does take a couple of things.
I just got to play the game.
Yeah, I sort of feel like maybe if Square Enix knew the layout of what they were signing themselves into when they probably signed that deal at some point in last generation, they wouldn't have made the deal. They would have like realized that no, like multi-platform everywhere day one is the goal and is the future. And I think they really harmed Final Fantasy's overall brand perception, especially now when you have Atlas doing, maybe not as well initially as Final Fantasy can, but you're talking about Final Fantasy was at one point maybe one of the biggest, if not like the biggest series in the world. And Persona, which was way, 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 way more niche, has now, gotten a lot bigger. And Atlus's profile itself, I mean, Metaphor ReFantasia, did like 1 million in a day, and who knows what it's at now. Like, it might not approach like what the sales were for Final Fantasy right out of the gate, but they're close enough to where it's like, oh, well, it's probably uncomfortable for Square to be in that position when they started from much higher, and they see what some of their contemporaries in Japan, like Sega with Yakuza and Atlus, are getting out of being like everywhere, where they really embraced let's do exclusives, and it really hasn't worked out for them, to the point where they've constantly talked about this in their financial things. And when you bring that up and when you say that, I don't know, some people get mad about it, but it's just like, they probably would have made a different decision if they had known. Maybe they just thought like, no, this will be good for us. They'll cover the dev costs or whatever, and we'll sell a lot. But then it didn't happen, and Final Fantasy's prestige and luster has kind of dwindled this generation.
I did notice that was it Eurogamer, or maybe it was PC Gamer? Some big website. It was either Eurogamer or PC Gamer. They put out an article that was kind of like an analysis opinion piece on why Final Fantasy had just dropped off in relevance compared to Persona and Atlus, and even like the Yakuza Like a Dragon turn-based games. Like, I feel like got a lot more hype around them than any of the recent Final Fantasy games. And it really is that sort of the betrayal of the fans every game they do. Every game's an experiment. And it kind of loops back around to what we were saying at the start of the show about Xbox constantly experimenting. When Final Fantasy is constantly experimenting, how can you build up a fan base when people don't know what to expect game over game? Okay, there's a Moogle in every game. Okay, there's a Tonbra in every game. But like, the games like change so vastly game over game over game. And I think maybe in the past there was more of an appetite for that. But when every single game is a spin-off, how can you build up nostalgia? How can you build up a cachet? How can you build up like a consistent fan base of expectations? Like when you play an Atlus game, you know what you're gonna get. When you play a From Software game, you know what you're gonna get. And maybe like some bits and pieces change, or they get some new extra features on top and stuff like that, which is the kind of thing you should do, sequel over sequel over sequel. But Final Fantasy is just like, nah, fuck it. We'll throw out the entire game and make a new game every single game. And like, sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. But every time it doesn't work, you lose fans. So Final Fantasy's done this to themselves with terrible management, like complete, like, I want to say ego around the franchise, and just being like, oh, Final Fantasy, we're so big, we can do whatever we want. And they've just alienated everyone who loved that franchise at every possible opportunity, and they should make it turn-based again. Hey, thanks, bye. Welcome. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk.
Did you play much of 16 when it came to PC?
I did play a fair bit. I think I'm about 15, 20 hours in. I think it's got the worst combat ever in a game.
Oh, yeah.
I think the combat is just so boring. It really needed to launch with a hard mode out of the gate just to make it more engaging. I know there's a hard mode once you've completed it, but I don't want to play the game twice, bro. I don't have time. So like, I'm playing on normal, which it's the most painfully easy, simplistic hack and slash game I've ever played in my life. It's like, I don't know, Babby's first hack and slash. It's so boring. However, that said, I love the story. I like the characters. The visuals are stunning, and some of the cutscenes and cinematics are probably the best I've ever seen. So it's like playing two different games. It's like the people who designed the cinematography in that game, the people who designed the look and the way, the story beats and the high spots and the climactic moments, the people who designed that aspect of the game, they really cooked. But the people who designed the combat and the flow of the actual gameplay, it's like they have never made a video game before, man. It's awful. It's a terrible game. So like even within the genre it's trying to emulate, like Devil May Cry, it's not a good hack and slash game. If it was a good hack and slash game, that'd be something to talk about. But it's not even a good hack and slash game. It's not a good action RPG. It's so that's Final Fantasy 16. So I don't know, man. And I'm someone with a huge amount of nostalgia, and I'm someone who apologizes for some of Final Fantasy's experiments, man. Like I played Final Fantasy 11 for God's sake for hundreds and hundreds of hours. I played Final Fantasy 14, but they're sort of more modern games should be spin-offs. They shouldn't be mainline games. You know, I'm all for trying new things, but they take it too far. They take it to the extreme. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there who'd say, they'd naysay and say, it'd be like, oh man, naysaying. But Jez is wrong. But the sales speak for themselves, bro. I ain't wrong. Absolutely 100% right and based. And Thanos says, yeah, the guy who did the combat in 16 worked on DMC. Yeah, but like, what was he doing? Was he drinking or something? Because I'm telling you, the combat in DMC is like orders of magnitude better than Final Fantasy.
I also think you're probably too early in the game. You probably haven't got to the part where you add a lot more variety to the combat. Because I don't think it's as bad as... Yeah, but knowing you're probably not very far in the game.
I've just... I'm fighting... What was the last thing I did? Fighting the Titan dude? The big Earth Metal dude? Yeah.
Okay. So I will say, like, there aren't a lot of, like, combo strings, but, I mean, there are videos...
I just unlocked the... I did just unlock a new combat feature, like... And I was really excited, because I was like, oh, yeah, this is going to make it more interesting now. Like the Fury thing, or whatever it is.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
We got another gifted 5 subs from Fantasticals. Thank you.
Fantasticals, man.
Hopefully everybody's enjoying all the gifted subs today. I think that's like...
1 million?
60, 75 or something?
Damn. That's a lot of subs, man. I know my Final Fantasy takes are really controversial, but that's the thing. The game's become controversial. You know, half the fan base hate it, half of them love it. But, like, everyone loves the Persona games. Everyone loves the From Software games because they're consistent, you know. And I don't think you can afford to make a game that's Marmite in 2024 where half the fan base love it and half of it hate it, man. Final Fantasy 15 was the same way. Final Fantasy 15 had both of Final Fantasy 16's problems, where it was like lame story, lame combat, and the only thing going for it really was the graphics. And that is like, I reviewed Final Fantasy 15, so I played it all the way through. Hated that game, bro. Hated it, dude. It was so lame, indescribably lame. The only thing that was good about that game was the villain, whose name I can't even remember off the top of my head. Oh man, combat in that game was so bad.
So we had a Xbox mobile store blocked, delayed, maybe is a better word. But Sarah Bond had to put out a statement because the court stayed the order about the Android store, because Microsoft made a big thing about, hey, and starting in November, you'll be able to buy games directly from the Android app or whatever. And they were going to launch their mobile store. And I feel like they sort of knew this was going to happen, that the judge would step in. And they surely did. So now they made the statement where it was like, hey, well, I guess I'll read the exact statement here. So let's see here. We have Sarah Bond saying, at Xbox, we want to offer players more choice in how and where they play, including being able to play and buy games directly from the Xbox app. I recently shared our ambition to unlock these features first with the Google Play Store and Android devices in the US, while other app stores adapt to meet consumer demand. Due to a temporary administrative stay recently granted by the courts, we are currently unable to launch these features as planned. Our team has the functionality built and ready to go live as soon as the court makes a final decision. We are eager to launch and give more choice and flexibility to players. So I was like, okay. But then Google shot back at him, Jez.
I sure did.
And says Microsoft has always been able to offer their Android users the ability to play and purchase Xbox games directly from their app. They've simply chosen not to. The court's order and rush to force its implementation threatened Google Play's ability to provide a safe and secure experience. Microsoft, like Epic, are ignoring these very real security concerns. We remain focused on supporting an ecosystem that works for everyone, not just two of the largest game companies. Shots fired.
Oh my god.
From Google to Xbox.
Yeah, oh my god. Google is such a clown show, man. I mean, that statement is omitting so many factors. And it's not like those companies they're out there saying it's impossible for us to do this. What the issue is that Google makes it prohibitively expensive for them to do that. So like Epic and those other guys, it wouldn't be profitable for them to do that stuff that Google wants them to do. And Google does that on purpose. They don't want it to be profitable because it would take time away that people could be spending on the Google Play Store. So that's really the contention, is that Google doesn't want to open up its store, despite the fact they operate a monopoly. The Windows is a monopoly. The Windows operating system is basically a monopoly on PC, but it's also open. Anyone, anywhere can set up a business through Windows, and Microsoft doesn't get a penny. But with Google, they do everything in their power to obscure the ability to proliferate a business on Android, right? And that's really where the contention is at the end of the day. So you can Google can argue the point all they want, but the fact is they operate a monopoly on mobile now, and their monopoly is preventing innovation in the space, which is hurting consumers. It'd be like if Microsoft controlled Windows and stopped Steam from growing, and they were like, oh yeah, okay, you can have Steam, but first you've got to jump through all these hoops. You've also got to give us a cut, all that kind of stuff. There'd be no Steam sales, there'd be no innovation, there'd be no competition. So then you'd end up with a situation where consumers are hurt, and that's where we're at with Google right now. So Google's a joke, but I suppose like none of us here really care about this. Like even I don't care about this. Like I wouldn't be buying mobile games from Android necessarily. I don't know who is excited about the idea of buying games from another store. I think Microsoft's barking up the wrong tree. But what it's really about is being able to sell cloud games, I think, more than anything. Because right now, being able to sell cloud games through Android is impossible without Google taking a cut. And if Google takes a cut, that's just going to hurt the profitability of cloud even more. So it just kind of prevents that business model from even having a chance. And it's egregious because Google themselves had that business, and then they didn't want to compete. They didn't want to compete, but they also don't want anyone else to innovate in that space. So that's why Google's shit, and that's why it'll be interesting to see if Microsoft can actually get anything through there, because personally, I don't fancy their chances, dude. Google's going to do everything in their power to stop that from happening. And I think Microsoft's got the odds stacked against them, but I don't know. HK Gaming says, I would love if certain Xbox games on Android would play anywhere. That would be hype as fuck. I mean, that would be cool. I mean, if it's a Unity developed game, theoretically, you could port it to Android, natively. And there are some games which would be cool to have Xbox Play Anywhere on Android, like the Pixel Remaster games. I'd love to be able to play the Pixel Remaster games on my phone without cloud. That'd be really handy, and other games like that. But I don't know. I think Microsoft's honestly wasting their time. It would be much cheaper for them and much more effective long term if they just built up Windows to run on those kind of devices. Like some kind of Windows phone, Rand. I think that'd be far more effective. I don't know.
So, let me ask you this, though. It's like, you can open up the like, I'm on iOS, so maybe this doesn't apply to Android, but I'm assuming it does because the iOS doesn't want these things on here, right? So, on the Xbox app on iOS, you can you can set up to download any of the games, but you can't purchase any of them, right? But when I go to the PlayStation app on the phone, I can buy games directly from the app. And I'm sort of wondering why PlayStation offers that and why Xbox doesn't. Is PlayStation really paying a premium to Apple for this feature?
Well, I mean, I don't know about the situation on Apple, but there are I don't have an Apple because I'm, I've got good taste. But on my lovely Samsung, I did notice that like one day I opened the Kindle app and then there was a pop-up that was like, oh, because of Google's rules, we can no longer offer direct purchases for books through the Kindle app on Android. Please go to the web to do this. And then I thought, okay, well, I'll do it through the Amazon app. So I opened the Amazon app on Android and it was the same thing. It was like, we're not allowed to sell books on the Amazon app through Android anymore because of Google's rules. So clearly there's some kind of hindrance here, whether it's I don't know, whether it's the rules or whether Google are just being shit or whether they're, asking for a fee or maybe like Google strategically waiving the rules for Sony or something, because, there's no reason they can't do that. I mean, I suppose like if they got investigated on Discovery, they'd be asked why they're offering preferential treatment.
I'd imagine the Xbox app works the same on both Android and iOS, just like I assume the PlayStation app.
No, I wouldn't assume that, dude.
No,
there's different rules, man. There's different rules for each store, So, what exists on iOS might not exist on Android, but also like there's different business models because Apple users spend more, right? Which is why sometimes you'll get situations where they'll just eat the cost because they're going to make more money anyway. So, oftentimes there's functionality that exists on iOS that doesn't exist on Android. And in fact, I can offer you an example on Patreon, right? So on our very own Patreon, there's an Apple tax, right, which doesn't exist on Android, on the Android app, because Android isn't forcing Patreon to use Google's payment system. So Patreon uses its own payment system, which is why on Patreon you pay 30% less because they're using their own payment system, whereas Apple forces those companies to use their payment system, which is why Patreon put the price of our Patreon up by 30% on iOS if you buy it through there. If you buy it through the web, it's 30% cheaper. If you buy it through Android, it's 30% cheaper. And so that's a Google thing, an Apple thing, sorry. The Apple tax is, what Epic Games was moaning about, is the Apple tax. That they, even if a company has their own payment system or their own content delivery system, Apple won't let them use it under the guise of, oh, think of the children, what about the security, all that kind of shit. Even if it's like a huge company like Patreon or Microsoft or whatever, But then like in the Discovery, I don't know if you saw this, Rand, but, well, you probably didn't because you don't care, but in the Discovery, during the Apple Epic Games battle, it was revealed that Apple offers preferential rates for Spotify and Netflix, if I remember correctly. Because Netflix probably would have been like, well, if you're going to charge us this much money, we're going to, give preferential treatment to Google or whatever, or something like that. I don't know. I can't remember if it was Spotify or Netflix specifically, but it was a case of like some companies enjoyed preferential treatment from Apple. So there's all kinds of like nuances and facets to this. And I think Microsoft's targeting Android specifically because they probably think like with the way the regulatory landscape is, Google's being investigated heavily right now. And Google's like, that we had, the court order that triggered all this in the first place was they were like, oh yeah, Google's operating a legal monopoly, so they've got to open up their shit, right? So that was like the first instance of it. And also now the Department of Justice, and this might not pan out with the election, and the change in hands or whatever, but the Department of Justice in America was like, Google, you got to sell Chrome, man. Chrome's too big, and linking Chrome to Google, that's no good. So you got to sell Chrome. And then they were like, well, if that's not enough, then we're going to make you sell Android as well. So Microsoft's probably smelling that there's more blood in the water with Google, which is why they're pushing the issue on Google rather than on Apple right now, when really they should be doing both. But then Microsoft itself is now being investigated for antitrust complaints over its cloud business, you know. So it's an interesting time in the regulatory landscape. But we'll see where it all goes, you know. It's a strange times. A lot of governments are asking if tech companies are not just too big, and maybe it's time for change, but I don't
know. Someone in chat says that the reason PlayStation can do it is because they have 2 apps. Yes, Spoon says, Rand, it's because PlayStation has 2 separate apps. And I did look, and they do have 2 separate apps. So you have the regular PlayStation app, but then there's also an app for remote play. So, like...
Oh, is that the issue?
I don't know.
Well, that's probably part of the rules, isn't it? Like, it's got to be separate or something?
Yeah, where Xbox... I think the remote play is built into the main app. And I think maybe I did hear something about, like, you can't... From the same app, you can't play the games that you buy, or you can't purchase the stuff in the same app. So maybe that's why PlayStation has 2, where
then...
I don't know.
But then why does Amazon have to remove books from the Kindle app and the Amazon app?
Yeah, Special Nick says they broke off the remote play app. Was that the reason why PlayStation, you can buy the games in the app, where the Xbox One you can't? Or is this specifically about the Xbox store in general? Like, are they talking about the store? It's confusing. It's a bunch of billion-dollar corporations fighting each other over stuff. So, and you know, the thing is, I don't even care because I'm not going to play the games on mobile anyways. So,
I don't think anyone really cares.
I'm sure there are people out there that care about it. You know, Microsoft really cares about it, but which is weird.
I would love to.
So like Special Nick says, Apple doesn't want you to be able to buy and play the game in the same app. That's so odd. Why the distinction?
No, because they want to make it hard for companies to pull it off. Because if you've got to maintain 2 apps, that's significantly more expensive, right?
Yeah, I guess so. And Xbox wanted a one-stop shop where it's like everything Xbox is here, which is the reason why you can download any game from the app, but you have to purchase it on the PC or the console.
There's literally no reason. There's no real reason why Apple should stop that functionality. Like, why? You know? Like, all it does is make things more hard for consumers and then also other people. They don't want to do it because they want a monopoly over people, the ability to purchase content from the same app. They want a monopoly over that user behavior, which is monopolistic and anti-competitive when they operate a monopoly, especially in the United States. But, like, Apple's... you know, generates so much money for the US economy that they let them do it. They let them get away with it, you know. It's like, you know, like we're talking about Samsung in South Korea. Apple's kind of like the Samsung of North America, right? That's why these companies spend millions of dollars on lobbying to try and influence senators onto their side. You know, and you had like senators who were coming out in favor of the ABK deal, and then people were looking up like who's donating to them. Oh, it's Microsoft, you know, stuff like that. We're just all owned by tech companies, bro.
Yeah,
that's the problem, man.
Artemis says we're less than an hour away, and that secret Sony showcase being announced. They did put out a trailer today. Did you watch the trailer where they thanked the fans and everything? And I think the last shot of the trailer was Bloodborne, where it says it has to do with persistence or something.
Persistence, yeah, I did see that.
They have to be trolling, like, at that point.
I think, like, I mean, it's one thing to troll your fan base, but I don't think you troll people but and then like just disappoint them. They have to be doing something with Bloodborne, man. They have to be. Maybe that's the next game. Do we know the next game? Is it Blue Point that did Demon's Souls? Do you think that could be the next game they're working on?
Blue Point's next game was said to be a new IP of some kind, but I mean, I don't know. I don't follow PlayStation stuff as closely as the Xbox stuff. So I'm not sure. I mean, I guess it's possible they could be doing Bloodborne. But I thought the rumor was that they were doing their own new game.
Because Sony wholly owns Bloodborne, right?
Yes. but From Software is the developer, and there are some people that think that there's some stipulation in the contract that only From Software could work on the game or something, or I don't know. There was this whole rumor that, you know, because From Software did Demon Souls, and Sony owns the IP for that, and that then From Software went to do Dark Souls with Bandai, and like Dark Souls and Demon Souls are so close that Sony was thinking about litigation or something along those lines, and then because of that, From, you know, promised to make them an exclusive, which was Bloodborne, and then I don't know. I remember like hearing this rumor a long time ago. I don't know if I ever really believed it, but it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, Demon Souls and Dark Souls are pretty goddamn similar, right? And that maybe that was like a peace offering, like, oh, we'll do this for you, and then we're gonna move on. But it is the one game that PlayStation fans all agree on, like, needs to be remastered, remade, or at least should get a 60 frames option. And people are clamoring for it to be on PC. I mean, it would do incredibly well. It would
blow the
You talk
fuck
about
up
like
on
remasters
PC,
or whatever, like that is a sure bet as you can get. But the question is, if there has to be a reason why they haven't done anything with it. It can't just be we don't want to. There's money to be made, especially when there's a lot of money to be made. And I think there would be a lot of money in a Bloodborne remaster or remake. So maybe you could argue they're saving it for next generation as like a selling, like they did with Dark Souls remake for the PS5 as a launch title. Maybe you could be like, PS6, here's Bloodborne remake as a launch title or something. But I know there's still people that expect some sort of remastered version to be announced at this secret Sony showcase that's supposed to happen soon, tomorrow or something. I don't know. But, you know, keeping with PlayStation, Shuhei Yoshida has left, which was a kind of a surprise. Do you know what I'm talking about, Jez?
Yep, Shu. He was running their indie program, right?
Yeah, he was in charge of the indie stuff. I mean, he wasn't always in charge of the indie stuff. He was more, he was higher up, I think, last generation, and then was put in charge of the indie stuff later on. Some people said it was a demotion, but he's been at the company for 31 years, which is a very, very long time, right? A lot of people respect him across the industry for all the work he's done at the company, helping shepherd it along through the years. And he says he wants to stay in the industry. And I saw some people being like, coming to Xbox confirmed, which would be a shock. You want to talk about, that's like Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, and Scott Hall showing up as the NWO in the WWE, you know?
Cool.
Kind of thing. Like, it's like something you never thought you would see, and it's like, holy crap, they're here. Like, Shuhei Yoshida showing up at Xbox, you know, which would be absolutely crazy.
Yeah, Phil put a nice message up, and they replied to each other. Like, Phil and him seem to be on good terms, and I think it would be a fantastic get for Microsoft, because obviously, like, there's going to be so many connections there that Shu could make for Xbox. And I think connections and, you know, relationships is something that Microsoft generally struggles with. So I think it would be a huge get for Microsoft, but it's also probably not particularly likely. But we'll see what happens.
I just saw this article posted by gamesindustry.biz.
Oh.
Look, and I respect Shuhei Yoshida a lot, and it's you know, he is, when you talk about the PlayStation legacy, he's someone that you think of, like, you know, you think of like executives at companies and who shaped the culture at those studios. He's definitely one you think of, because he's, you know, been there. I mean, I think Jim Ryan was there a long time too, but I don't think anybody likes Jim Ryan. It really does seem like everybody likes Shuhei Yoshida. And a lot of these corporate entities kind of move off. I mean, you had like Sean Layden, who was there for a while, but he left, or Jack Tretton, or Andrew House, or Agent 47 himself, Phil Harrison, who's basically destroyed every place he's ever been at. You know, like was that PlayStation during the the PS1 and PS2 era, and then left to join Xbox, and then left there and to join Stadia, and his time at Xbox was not good, and then his time at Stadia was even worse. So it's like, where's he gonna go next? And like, oh, the PS2.
I love that meme of the Reaper just killing stuff. That was Phil Harrison all over.
And then they announced that the PS2 hit 160 million units, which it seems to cost, like, they constantly update this thing, and it's just when you think a product that came out in 1999 and was discontinued in 2012, I think was when they stopped making them. Like, oh, you couldn't sell any more units, and anytime the Switch comes closer to it, suddenly Sony updates it and be like, we're further away. You ain't gonna catch us. It's like, man, that's nuts that the PlayStation 2 is still selling well enough that it reached 160 million. But this report here, which is kind of funny, new report claims gamers spend more time watching videos about gaming than actually playing games. Shocker.
It's me at the moment.
Shocker. Gamers typically spend 7.4 hours a week gaming and 8.5 hours watching gaming videos. Okay. The research, which MIDA claims highlights the untapped potential for game publishers to bring video content inside their own ecosystem. It also claims that 24% of console/PC players and 48% of in-game buyers watch game-related content at least monthly, with the later considered high-spending gamers. This means that revenue left is on the table, with game publishers ceding significant revenue opportunities, especially advertising, to third-party video platforms, even as the games market faces growth challenges. It's time for game publishers to think about in-game video as something beyond marketing alone. So that's interesting. And you know what? I am not surprised by that, because you could just look at social media and how many people spend their time on Twitter arguing about exclusives and list wars versus actually playing any of them.
Dude,
so it's not surprised. I'm not surprised whatsoever.
I'm not surprised either, but there's actually like a link up there to that issue.
Okay.
Microsoft just announced, I think it was last week or the week before, in the Xbox Insider program, there's now, if you open Windows key and G on while you're playing a game on Windows 11, you can actually like watch videos while you're playing, and it'll use Bing to find content relevant to the game you're actually playing. So like, for example, we're talking about, you got Call of Duty in the headline on this article, right? On this video. So like if someone hit that and opened it up and then it was like, boom, straight there, our podcast, maybe, so people can watch while they're playing a game. But that's why I do think like something people ask me a lot about is why Microsoft got rid of picture-in-picture on Xbox. Because I think Microsoft sort of predicted that to some degree, that the future was going to be all about people have fried attention spans and they have to do two things at once. And picture-in-picture is a way to do that. It would be cool if I could like watch wrestling while playing, Call of Duty, just have it up in there inside, or when you're playing one of your walking simulators, you do something more entertaining, like watch one of your shows. What shows do you like, Rand, at the moment? The Bear. You like The Bear?
I mean, I like The Bear. So the last season of Bear was disappointing compared to the previous two seasons. But stuff I've watched just recently, I finished The Penguin on Max, and oh my god, that was amazing. With Colin Farrell as the Penguin, and set in the Batman universe, Matt Reeves' Batman. And you know what? I'd recommend that to anybody, not just like Batman fans or comic book fans. If you just like a good TV show, this is that. And a lot of times when you're watching shows and you know the actors, you're just like, oh, hey, that's Al Pacino giving a good performance, but it's still Al Pacino. Like you look at the characters, you're like, yeah, that's Keanu Reeves, right? When you're watching John Wick, it's like, that's Keanu Reeves. You don't necessarily think like, bro, that's just John Wick. It's like, oh, it's Keanu Reeves playing John Wick. And sometimes he's just, and he's good at it, but you just look at him and it's like, yeah, I know who that is. This is maybe the first time I've ever been watching a show and have forgotten who's playing. Like, I'd be looking at it and the Penguin, and it looks nothing like Colin Farrell. Doesn't sound anything like Colin Farrell.
He's fantastic. I really want to watch that show because I really enjoyed the Batman. I think it's like, I know a lot of people said it was too emo, but I kind of like that for Batman. So, dark and gritty or whatever. I don't care if it's emo. So I'm gonna try and watch that, but I don't know which. Maybe if there's someone in the UK listening, what platform is the Penguin on in the UK? Because I have no idea. Maybe I just have to, sail the seven seas or something. I don't know. Shadowblade says, Jez said this to Rand. I love you, Rand, like Jacob Fatou. Like, I love you, Solo. You know Jacob Fatou?
Yeah, I know.
I love you, Solo.
I love you, Solo. Yeah, you got to say it like he says it, Jez. This is why your podcasting, your podcasting WWE stuff isn't going to take off.
Well, because I can't do impressions.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, like Colin Farrell, like this Penguin show with him, this is the first time where I'm watching it and it's just like the performance is so good it makes you forget who's actually the actor. Because it looks nothing like him. It doesn't sound anything like him.
He's fantastic, man. He's a fantastic actor.
And it's like he's a Batman villain because it's the Penguin.
Yeah.
And he does bad things in the show. But you can't help but root for him. You know what I mean? Because he's not in the position where he is normally, where he's like head of his crime family. He is just kind of, he's down in the food chain, so to speak. But he wants more. He thinks he's deserved more. So he kind of is like trying to get to the top, to get what he thinks he's deserved. So, like, you can't help, considering he's presented as the protagonist of the show, you can't help but, like, root for him. Even though, it's just like, maybe you shouldn't be doing this because he's a bad guy, Daswell Gordon says Now TV in the UK.
That's, yeah, Now TV. I don't have that. It's like the only one I don't have. So... Yeah, I'll figure it out. I wish it was on Netflix, man. What?
Yeah, why can't everything just be on Netflix? Is basically what you're gonna say, right?
Yeah, basically. Like nobody has Now TV. I'm so glad WWE is coming to Netflix. Like in Europe, we get everything. Not usually Europeans get screwed over when it comes to these kind of things. But for once, we get in the better deal. We get everything. We get Raw, we get pay-per-views, we get SmackDown, we get NXT, we get the whole thing. That's awesome. But like, when it comes to like these other shows, like the HBO shows, they're never on Netflix, man. They're always on some random ass streaming service no one has. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, people have.
I really want to watch that. Yeah, I know HBO Max is really big, isn't it? It's like where Game of Thrones is, right?
Yes. I mean, it's not as big as Netflix, or I don't even think it's as big as Disney Plus. But
I have no idea why I still subscribe to Disney Plus. I think only because my girlfriend likes it. But
Shadowblade says, Jez and Rand, who do you want to face John Cena's last WrestleMania match? I say Randy Orton. There you go, Jez. This is kind of a sneak peek into Jez's wrestling podcast. Who should John Cena face?
John Cena's last match.
His last WrestleMania. Who should he be wrestling? What should be the storyline?
Randy Orton's, I don't know. Randy Orton would be cool, but I kind of feel like Randy Orton's had retired a lot of people over the years.
See, here I think
someone else a chance.
I think
I think
Randy Orton should be his final match.
No, I disagree. It needs to be someone new that can sort of put over, because like Randy Orton's already over. Like if it's John Cena's final match, you want to pass the torch kind of thing. Randy Orton's done everything that you can do in wrestling, pretty much in WWE at least. So, it'd be about putting someone over. So for me, there's a bunch of wrestlers right now who deserve to be put over, but I'm gonna say Bron Breakker, man. I'm gonna say Bron Breakker because Bron Breakker's on like a hot streak right now, and yeah, I want to see Bron Breakker smash John Cena, man.
I got your WrestleMania match because you could go a lot of different ways, but this is where I think you could do, Cena, Randy at WrestleMania. You could do a whole bunch of different configurations, but here's what I think they're gonna do. I think Cena's gonna be fighting for one of the titles. So you could do
what really?
You could do dude. He's coming back for a year, right? A whole year. And he's literally on the verge. I think he's tied with Ric Flair for the number of championships won. So they would be stupid if they're not going to explore that storyline of, can John Cena win number 17, right? So we know that John Cena's at the Royal Rumble, and we know that John Cena's going to be at Elimination Chamber. I bet you John Cena is actually going to be in the Royal Rumble. And then he'll get eliminated. And then John Cena will go to Elimination Chamber, and I bet you he wins the Elimination Chamber. So you can choose...
Elimination Chamber? When are they doing that?
They're doing that in March.
Oh. Okay.
So he'll win Elimination Chamber. So that means he can pick... Or he has a world title shot at WrestleMania. So, and I think the champions at WrestleMania will either be Gunther or Cody. So I think what they're going to do is it's going to be Cody Rhodes versus Cena for the championship at WrestleMania.
It could be. I think like Cena hasn't been on TV very much, so I don't want to talk about this too much, but it's like I don't know how you fit that in. There's a lot of storylines going on right now, and I think trying to shoehorn a Cena storyline in this late hour is probably going to come across as a little bit too forced and contrived. But I don't know, man. I suppose we'll find out.
That'd be my prediction. But that's a taste of Jez's West Wrestling podcast, where he gets everything wrong and I get everything right, even though I don't really watch the show.
I don't know. I'm pretty good at predicting what they're doing, man. Pretty good.
I don't know.
Well, maybe you should do the podcast with me and find out.
No, you got Paris to do it with you, so you're good.
Well, you said you didn't want to do it, bro.
Anyways, you know what? I think we're gonna aim for a shorter show this week, so let's hit up the Patreon questions, shall we?
Yeah, man.
Like the podcast, if you would, please, guys, or subscribe to the channel if you're listening to this later on the podcast apps like Spotify or Apple. Drop us a like, write a review. Really helps out the discoverability on those platforms. So let's see here. We go to get some questions. If anybody wants to drop a question in the Patreon, you can do so because it's we're gonna have to spend some time answering these. So you still got time if you want to drop something. Let's see here. Questions. Where are we? Here we are. All right. Well, not many questions this week. I'm not surprised. So
yeah, it's been kind of a slow news week, hasn't it?
Yeah. Although Xbox Era did a 5-hour podcast yesterday, I don't understand how, but they did it. And I don't even know why anybody want to sit there with them for 5 hours. Especially, can you imagine spending 5 hours with Nick? Jesus. be crazy. We got Wagerman here. says, hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. I was thinking of the 3DO model recently and where we are in the industry. Letting multiple manufacturers make devices which played the 3DO catalog was way ahead of its time. They had the same interface, but slight variations in quality of audio, cables, and build. The catalog just couldn't compete with the big three, Sega, Sony, and Nintendo. I was wondering if you thought a similar model would work with the Xbox going forward. There's definitely a paradigm shift happening, and I really do think this is one direction I could go. This is like the third-party Xbox thing, right? The third-party OEMs making Xbox devices. What do you think about that strategy in general?
I mean, was he talking about the 3DO? Did I hear that?
Well, yeah, he was thinking of the 3DO model, and he said, I don't remember the 3DO, but he says letting multiple manufacturers make devices which played the 3DO catalog was way ahead of its time. So essentially saying like multiple manufacturers made different types of 3DO stuff, but all the 3DO catalog was available across them all. So in a similar situation, like we see Asus and, all these different handheld companies that essentially can play your Xbox catalog. But what would it look like if one of these companies made a Xbox console? Right?
Well,
so like you have Xbox doing their own, like, would be the flagship product. They would do their own. But then maybe Samsung comes in and they're like, we're going to make an Xbox branded console that's more than a console, maybe even sort of a PC thing. And there's like different iterations of it. Maybe that's how you get a mid-gen refresh from Xbox. Not that Xbox is going to make it, but that one of their partners decides to make it and could price it to the point where they make money on the sale instead of usually how these are loss-leading devices. I don't know. Is that something that would work in the industry, or what do you think?
Well, Microsoft, they've been on the record and they said, we do think of the Asus ROG and Lenovo Legion Go as Xbox devices. Internally, for intensive purposes, they consider those devices to be Xbox consoles. So when they're looking at budgeting, they're looking at things like how much budget do we need to do to make the Xbox experience on the Asus ROG Ally better. So in essence, we're already moving towards that universe, where Microsoft thinks as like they think of gaming focused Windows devices as Xbox devices in essence, right? So I think it's going to happen. I think it's just a matter of time. How long is it going to take to get there, and how long can they actually sustain that? How long can they sustain that paradigm shift without potentially hollowing out what they've already got? Which is what we often talk about here on Xbox 2. We often talk about like this concept of Microsoft focusing on other things while letting what they've got now stagnate, which again, sort of like what Final Fantasy did, right? They ignored the fan base they had to chase experiments, and now Final Fantasy is, not dead, but it's struggling, So I suppose it'll be interesting to see if they can pull it off, but I think that is the strategy, I think that is the strategy.
Yeah, I just sort of wonder how many, because I could see the idea of like, hey, we'll make anybody make Xbox devices, right? But how big is that market? Right? How big is that market of, hey, let's just, like, hypothetically speaking, let's say you have an Xbox flagship console from Xbox Next Generation, which they said they're doing. But let's just say, for shits and giggles, Razer makes an Xbox console, Samsung makes one, and someone else makes it. Say there's 4 on the market, 1 from Xbox themselves and 3 from other manufacturers. Is there enough people in the overall market where like you could would be enough for each one of those for it to make it a worthwhile business investment where you don't have like, hey, Samsung put theirs out, but because they're not getting a cut in the store, they priced it so they would make money on it, but they just didn't sell enough to make it a worthwhile business venture. You know what I mean? Like, that's the sort of thing.
No, but this is the thing about hardware, and I think we talked about this on Xbox 2+1, and someone actually yelled at me for being rude to you on Xbox 2+1 this past week, by the way, Rand. And it was over this exact point, over the point that, like, hardware manufacturers, they approach hardware differently to platform holders. So, like, Samsung makes all kinds of devices. They have, like, they don't just make the S21. They've got like the what are they on now? 24, I think. S25 coming out soon. I can't remember. But they don't just make the S. There's like 3 or 4 models of the S, Galaxy S, and then they've got the A series, and then they've got the Fold, and then they've got the Flip. They do so many different smaller hardware things for all different kinds of use cases and all different kinds of scenarios. They just don't manufacture shitloads of them. So it's easy for Samsung and companies that actually do manufacture devices to turn a profit on that stuff just from the outset. Whereas, like, when Microsoft's doing that stuff, they have to partner with a company to make the devices and all that kind of stuff. Whereas, like, a lot of these existing OEMs, they've already got their own manufacturing pipelines in order to do this and reduce costs, right? So there's fewer middlemen here. Whereas Microsoft reduces costs by selling software, the hardware manufacturers, the big hardware companies, they have like other ways of reducing costs. So, so what might be an issue for Microsoft wouldn't necessarily be an issue for Samsung. And by the way, Rand, on the topic of Samsung, there was a leak recently that suggests Samsung is making a foldable gaming handheld. So, I think we are going to see Samsung into the race as well down the line, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens, and whether or not it actually becomes a thing or not obviously remains to be seen.
Well, I know the hardware thing is a bit different, but let's I'm going to say a comparison to what we thought was going to have more companies entering it was the companies making SSD drives for Xbox. Because remember, we were told that, the competition is going to drive down prices for these expansion cards. Right? And we thought there was going to be multiple companies making the expansion cards for Xbox, which was going to drive down the price. And we're 4 years in, and there's literally just been 2. And it took the second one, 2 years before they put out, or was it 3 years before they put out, or Western Digital put out their expansion card?
Well, it's not a directly comparable scenario.
I know they're not directly comparable, and I did make that distinction, but that was something that we were thinking about, at the time before Xbox Series launched, was like, and Xbox even mentioned it to us and to others, like, yeah, more companies working on it are going to drive down the price and all that stuff. And then it sort of just didn't happen. And you can now compare Xbox's strategy with that storage solution versus PlayStation's storage solution. And it's unequivocally that PlayStation made the right call on that one. The ability to, like, buy your own SSD, cards or whatever, and slot them into the PlayStation. Prices came down ridiculously fast and quickly on those cards that you could put into your PlayStation 5. Well, like the Xbox One, it's kind of just been because there's so many different ways you can use an NVMe storage, M2 storage, but there's only like 2 ways you can use CF Express cards, and one of them is Xbox, and the other one is specific high-end cameras. So it's like, yeah, it's no wonder those prices stayed as high as they have. There's less supply and less demand. It's a double-edged sword. Because it is, they are very robust. You can rip them out and not have to worry about any of that stuff. And maybe Microsoft underestimated the users
by worrying too much about the simplicity, because they went with CF Express for the user and making it as simple as possible, and they didn't want to use NVMe M2 drives because they didn't want the laptop kind of experience, I guess. But clearly Sony made the right decision there, and I think this is another topic, but I'm just kind of like wondering, like, is the next gen Xbox going to be compatible with those devices? Because people have invested a lot of money into them.
I was thinking the same thing. Like, is this going to be just, hey, these SSD expansion cards
are now useless? Yeah.
Are they only going to be a thing for the Series X and S? Are they going to make it so they work? I mean, could you make it so they work on the next gen so you don't lose them per se? But then have a different solution. But yeah, I
do both.
I mean, I don't know. Like, people had their memory cards from their PS1 and PS2 gens that they completely dropped because they went, internal storage for PS3 and beyond. So it was like, but I guess the memory cards are a different thing. Like, they weren't $200 at launch, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I also thought about that too. Like, are you going to continue on with that solution moving forward, or are you going to basically have it where you can buy your own and install it like you can on the PlayStation? I don't know. I wonder what they're thinking on that one lies. We got Sith Lord. With the Bears firing the head coach in midseason in the first time in franchise history, will the Bears have a chance to win one game with 4 weeks remaining? Probably. Watch them win all 4 games, and then they'll stick with the interim head coach, and then he'll end up being the wrong decision because, the Bears responded. But yes, I don't know, Jez, if you saw this, or I know you don't care, but the Bears were a national joke this Thanksgiving when they played at 11:30. Like, the way they ended the game, people thought they could see all the different ways the Bears could lose, but they showed them a new one, and they were just a national laughing stock to the point where in the Bears' 100-year history, they have never fired a coach in season. They always wait till that season's over to fire him, but it was so bad they had to fire him in season. It's kind of crazy.
This is it's slightly off topic, but also kind of relevant. But did you see they fired the Intel CEO as well?
I did see that. I did.
Oh well, he retired. Sure, you did, buddy. Yeah, it's an what's that word? Ignominious end to a probably illustrious career. But I wonder who they're going to replace. Maybe Phil.
I did say they have 2 CEOs now, or they split up his responsibilities into 2 people, but 2 interim CEOs.
Interim CEOs, yeah. I do wonder who they'll get in to
Is
replace.
Intel doing good, or have they been on
no,
okay.
They are in deep shit, bro.
Are they?
They had the biggest layoffs in tech history this year. 12,000 people laid off.
What's going on with Intel? What's up?
Well, it's funny. Kind of dovetails into our discussion about manufacturers, being able to reduce costs. So, what Intel wanted to do was, instead of relying on Taiwan to make their chips, they thought, you know what, we could, make our own chips. And I think they did already make their own chips, but they were like, we can compete with Taiwan and also make other people's chips. So they tried to spin up these fabricators to make chips for other people, like Samsung and shit like that. But it's been a massive money black hole, and billions and billions of dollars wasted, and just disappearing into the ether because all the chips they've been trying to make, just low yield, poor efficiency, all that kind of shit. So it's been a nightmare for them, man. Absolute nightmare. And JB 1521 says, I thought they got a government deal. They did get a government deal. The CHIPS Act kind of bailed them out for now, I think, but it's not exactly a long-term strategy relying on government handouts, right? So he had to go, man. Once the government was involved, there's absolutely no way he was gonna be able to survive that, I think. But yeah, Intel's fucked. They are in deep shit. Nvidia's completely bodied them. on servers and graphics and AI. So all Intel makes really now is like legacy processors for Windows devices, pretty much. Like, I mean, I know they have other businesses too, but that's their bread and butter. But even that's going away because now you've got, you know, the other people making you've got other people making chips for Windows laptops now that have got much better battery life. So it's a bit of a nightmare situation for Intel. But
Okay.
that's the long and short of it, my dude.
We got Rave Damos. Hola, Cyber Monday Marauders. Hope you, your family, and friends have had a safe travel these last few days. Also, hope your avatars have had safe-ish travels through the Stalker zones, too. Hey, care to share any details you've pulled the trigger on these last few days? Doesn't have to be gaming related. I haven't bought anything. Have you? You bought any holiday sort of things?
I've bought a bunch of gifts for friends and family this week. So I bought some Minecraft slippers
Slippers, okay.
For Jenny's little boy.
I haven't,
because he's turned 4 now, and now he's obsessed with Minecraft.
as it seems, kids that age kind of tend to, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly he took to an Xbox controller. You know, like he just turned 4 and he's like, oh yeah, I'm an Xbox player now. Crazy. And also learning all the redstone circuitry and shit, like absorbing the knowledge on YouTube like a sponge on how to build complicated devices. It's kind of scary actually. But did I buy anything for myself? I actually bought some new earbuds. I bought these status audio earbuds that I keep seeing on Instagram that are supposed to be amazing and all singing and all dancing. So I'm gonna check them out. So that's what I bought recently. Because my Samsung earbuds, they just always fall out. So I wanted to try something that maybe wouldn't fall out. So that was me. That was my Cyber Monday purchase.
And he says, Jez, I'm a fan of both the Surface product line and the 3x2 aspect ratio. What's the best non-Surface 3x2 laptop out there? Does Windows Central have an article for this? Gracias, gents.
That's a great question. I personally don't know, but I know who will know. It's Zach Bowden. Zach Bowden or Dan Rubino would know. Dan Rubino would definitely know. So maybe message Dan Rubino on Blue Sky, because I don't think he's on Twitter anymore. And Dan will be able to answer that question. I personally cannot. But yeah, I do prefer that the taller aspect ratio for productivity. It's pretty nice, but it's annoying when you're playing a game and you get those huge black bars though. So downsides, right?
Yeah. Good on Conwell says, Happy Cyber Monday, Rand and Jez. I asked this question this time last year, and as things haven't eventuated, I'll ask it again. Jez, you edited the Black Friday Cyber Monday sales article this year? ? Whether you did or did not, I'm pretty sure you looked at each sale that was published by Windows Central. Were there any webcam or video equipment in the sales? As Rand is still appear on camera, I can only expect his equipment is now obsolete, out of date, or in severe need of upgrading from last year. So what can you recommend to Rand? Yeah, were there any sales, Jez?
I actually, funnily enough, I don't know if I did see any webcam deals that we did. I think we stopped covering webcams so much because everyone upgraded their webcams during the pandemic, and now nobody needs them anymore, so nobody buys them. So we stopped covering them. But the webcam that I use the Razer Kio X, which I think has really great low light performance. I use that in the UK, but in Germany, I've got the Elgato Facecam Mark II, I think it's called, which also has like even better low light performance. So either one of those is a great buy, Rand. I would probably for you recommend the Elgato, I think.
Okay.
If you ever wanted to, get on camera for some reason.
Res in Force says, Happy Cyber Monday, fellas. Glad I'm finally part of the Xbox 2 Patreon. Hope both of you had a great Thanksgiving holiday. Thank you for joining.
Welcome, and thank you so much.
I don't have much to ask, but one thing for both of you would be, what's your most anticipated game for 2025? Ooh, out of all of them? I mean,
Monster Hunter Wilds, easily for me.
I mean, that's coming out already. You got like 2 months to go, and you can play it, essentially.
It's still 2025, bro.
I know this might sound typical, but I'm really, really, really looking forward to seeing what they do with Grand Theft Auto 6. Like, what have they improved from their last game, 5 in 2013? Where do they take the genre? Because where Grand Theft Auto leads, everybody follows.
That is true.
Right? Like, what have they improved upon? What story are they telling? I don't really care much about the online aspect of the game, but I know that's going to be obvious. For them, it's going to be where they make the bread and butter. So there's that whole aspect of like, how do they improve Grand Theft Auto Online and all that stuff. I'm specifically talking about the campaign. How long is it? How big is the world? What does it look like? I really like Grand Theft Auto, and I've always really liked Grand Theft Auto. And I know maybe that's just like a plebeian opinion of like, oh, what's the most anticipated? Grand Theft Auto. But those games have always been so good with clever writing, and they pack it with so much stuff in comparison to a lot of other games.
It's going to be, I tell you one thing that I'm really interested to see in Grand Theft Auto, how they navigate the political landscape now, because everyone's so sensitive now.
Yeah,
you can't say anything without everyone getting so super insulted. I mean, like, oh my god, this game's woke, or oh my god, this game is bigoted and cancelled. Like, both sides are just so insufferable in America right now when it comes to media and stuff like that. So I'm interested to see like how are they going to navigate that, and sort of South Park it.
It's going to be tough because I would imagine
both sides.
I would imagine
South Park mocks both sides, right?
It's going to be tough for them because I would imagine most of that stuff's already finished. Games coming out this year, right?
Yeah,
like
I bet there'll be some kind of Trump parody in it, and then you'll have Republicans getting all offended, and then they'll probably mock the whole woke stuff, and then left will get offended.
Well, I mean, you can even talk about the Avowed situation that's currently going on, right? Where Avowed is under fire, right? Like there's the pronoun stuff. I got a
load of messages about that.
Right, there's the pronoun stuff, which you can set your pronouns to whatever you want. It's a role playing game. So it's like the idea, and it's a fantasy role-playing game. I don't understand, like, oh, it's a fantasy role-playing game which shouldn't have pronouns, but it's just like a way so the NPCs know what to call you, like he, she, they, whatever, right? But then I guess there's the larger issue with what Obsidian art director said, to the point where
the racist comments.
Yeah, about like he didn't want any more crusty white dudes in the game industry, and the idea of like essentially being like unlawful hiring practices at Obsidian, to the point where people are like tagging Satya Nadella, and if that's a true accusation, or if his feelings impacted his hiring, if he was involved in the hiring process, that's mean
discrimination, right?
Yeah, that's discrimination. That can mean big lawsuits for Microsoft. If you could prove like, hey, these are what your public thoughts are, and then look, it'd be like, were you involved in hiring? And if you were involved in hiring, who did you hire? And did you discriminate against anybody?
Fine time.
And it's like one person. But then it's like, I know it's like, oh, this is my personal account. Blah 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 blah. They're not the thoughts of my employers or whatever.
And then it becomes a First Amendment thing, right?
And then it's, well, yeah,
free speech, freedom of expression, free speach. I don't know, man. It's all that stuff.
Well, I mean, there is free speech, right? But like, I think people misinterpret free speech. Like, free speech only exists in the sense that the government can't arrest you for the things you say. You know what I mean? Like, outside of that,
sure, but like he could say like that was my free speech comment and had no influence on my hiring practices. Or whatever.
But I mean, but the thing is,
I was exercising my right to free speech.
Sure, and you but sometimes it's better to keep those thoughts internal than it is to say those things.
When you work for
when you work for a big company like Microsoft, who has to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe we should cover our asses because we don't want to be involved in a lawsuit about discriminatory hiring practices.
Yeah.
And Obsidian's been hiring, so it's like, was he involved in it? And if so, I'm sure they probably were looking at it and be like, are our I's dotted and our T's crossed on all this stuff? So, Avowed definitely seems to be under fire in a certain sector of the video game industry. They turned Destin Legary made the ugliest character you could possibly imagine, and then they presented it as, hey, this is what characters look like in Avowed, and it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I saw a right-wing grift account as well say, I applied for an Avowed review copy and I was denied. And it's like, bro, there are review copies for that game are weeks away. And what universe?
Weeks away, like months away.
Yeah, literally months away. Like, who? And then I get people messaging me like, oh my god, you see this? Avowed denied them review codes. I'm like, dude, it's fucking grift and lying and bullshit just to create drama clicks. So exhausting, man. That's why I don't use Twitter anymore. Everyone's fucking cooked. I'm just over that shit, bro.
Yeah.
Like I saw a meme the other day, like a boomer meme, where it was like, we used to use the internet to escape from reality, but now we use reality to escape from the internet. And I was like, fucking hell, it's kind of true. Like, we joke about go and touch grass, and it's like that's the point we're at. The internet's become so insufferable. People have made the internet so insufferable that you can't. Like, every time I get on and tweet anything, like even something innocent, I just get attacked by random people for random things. Like, so what did I tweet? I tweeted one of the deal posts one of my colleagues wrote, and someone was in the chat like, oh, I can't believe Xbox fans still follow Jez. All he does is shit on Microsoft. And then, like, I'll read another comment and it would be like, oh, why do Xbox fans follow Jez? All he does is fanboy and never criticizes Microsoft. Like, fucking hell, I can't win. I'll be whatever you want me to be, you know? Oh, man.
I'll be whatever you need me to be.
Cooked, man. Yeah.
Look at Zach.
Whatever you need me to be.
I knew my GTA 6 pick would ruffle some feathers. Zedek says trendy ran with GTA, and I mentioned that. I know like GTA would be the trendy pick.
You are.
I mean,
trendy.
also
you are
like,
trending,
dude.
round.
But also, there hasn't been a new GTA game, and if it comes out this year, 12 years.
I want a new Red Dead. Do you think they'll do another Red Dead?
Maybe down the road.
Because I kind of feel like, is there much more they can do with that setting?
Well,
and when it's a modern setting, there's always new politics, new technology.
Dude, it's Rockstar. I didn't think a Red Dead 2 would work. I didn't think a prequel could work. I ended up liking the prequel more than the original.
Mm.
You know, like, I love Arthur Morgan more than I like John Marston. And I didn't think that was possible. But when you have great writers and you combine it with all the money in the world to make a game, and it's like you end up with that. But if I wanted to choose something else other than Grand Theft Auto, I guess there's some other choices I could go to.
Monster Hunter?
No, not Monster Hunter.
Oh.
I am looking forward to Doom the Dark Ages, because I just know it's going to be fucking amazing.
No platforming, please.
No, platforming's fine, but
no platforming.
But even another game, Fable. Also, super curious to see how Playground Games tackles the RPG genre, especially in RPG, bringing back a beloved quote unquote RPG, and how RPGs right now are kind of like a very competitive genre, where you look at like the Witcher series, you look at like Cyberpunk, you look at Baldur's Gate, Dragon Age, right? There are a lot of games in that genre that are doing a lot of big things. So like the comparisons not only to the previous Fable games, but also to the contemporary RPG audience is going to be interesting, right? And I've liked what I've seen before of it. I mean, you've mentioned that you've seen the gameplay for it that hasn't released yet. So, should I mention that I saw it too, or no?
Well, it's too late now.
It's too late now.
Yeah.
So I mentioned
Rand
that.
saw it too.
Can I mention that you showed me? You didn't show me all of it. You showed me 30 seconds of it, I think, of the combat.
Yeah.
Woo.
You can mention it.
Woo. Damn. The excitement level really increased.
Looks tight, man.
Yeah,
looks really tight.
Hopefully we see it soon. Hopefully we see it either at the Game Awards or at the Dev Direct. But yeah, so it's like those two. Death Stranding 2, I'm super interested. I'm always interested in whatever Kojima's gonna do, and I'm curious to see where he takes Death Stranding. Now that everybody likes Death Stranding because it came to Xbox, and now Xbox fans are like, "Yay, Death Stranding!" But before it was like, "Fuck Kojima," but now it's like, "Yay, it's here!"
Well, hey, dude, it's got achievements now, so it's good.
That is true. I'm very curious to see where he takes Death Stranding. What he's gonna, is it still going to be what it was, where it's like, hey, I'm gonna walk around and deliver these packages to people, or is it gonna be something else? I don't know, and that's why it makes me curious.
Special Nick says, I still haven't played that shit, dude. You skipped the cutscenes. There's nothing in it for you. You could not play Death Stranding. There's nothing in it for you, bro. If you skip the cutscenes, you're literally just gonna be basically just carrying packages.
Yeah, remember we had that discussion? I think somebody asked us because it was about Nick. Could you review a game if you're skipping all the cutscenes? And I think both me and you said no, you can't.
Yeah.
Especially for a game that, if a game presents itself as like a story as important to the gameplay, then if you're skipping the story, then you're getting half the experience, so your review is essentially invalid. Right?
True that. I mean, that's why Xbox Hero gives every game 10 out of 10. They skip all the cutscenes.
They got to get the Mega Boost. The Xbox Mega Boost is what it's called on Twitter.
Xbox Mega Boost?
Yeah, when Xbox Era reviews an Xbox game and they give it a 10, it's called the Xbox Mega Boost. Because then Metacritic, when they see that 10, it takes the score and it just inflates it so much, even though realistically Xbox Air is really not weighted highly on the Metacritic scale, so like them giving the score or whatever doesn't really impact it at all. Because certain websites are weighted more heavily, like IGN, GameSpot and stuff. Like when they give a game a 10, it actually means more than other websites giving scores.
Yeah. True that.
So.
I mean, I give games a 10 out of 10 if it's got crafting system, hunger, and all that, and all the stuff that Rand hates. That's when I give it a 10 out of 10. If Rand hates it, I'm going to give it 10 out of 10, bro.
Yeah. There's also, hey, is Hollow Knight Silksong going to come out next year, finally? I'm going to be interested
Oh,
in
man.
That.
Maybe I'll have finished the game by then.
Yeah, no, you won't. And I'm sure there's probably a bunch of other games that I can't think of right now. 2025 is supposed to be pretty packed year. I mean, there's even a rumor Persona 6 is coming out next year, which would be crazy for the Persona fans.
Crazy for Atlas, man, after releasing Metaphor to, high praise.
Indeed. What else we got here? We have PandaMan77. Why hasn't Microsoft developed a Steam Deck app yet? They appear to have a good relationship with Steam, and many Xbox owners also own a Steam Deck. I think I remember that Jez mentioned they created one with interns or something at a codathon or something. It's annoying having to use a workaround. Like a hackathon, I think Microsoft does those hackathon stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's like... I mean... I honestly don't know, to be honest. And maybe like it's against... I mean, it wouldn't be against the policy. I mean, it's literally open. I honestly don't know. That's a good question. Something I could ask about. Why haven't they done more to, support Steam Deck directly? But I guess for Microsoft's money, they're just thinking like, well, Steam,
right,
Steam,
Do you have a Steam Deck, right? Yes, no?
Yes, I do.
So how do you
I don't use it anymore, but
how do you access Xbox games on the Steam Deck?
Well, you can access them. You can buy them on Steam.
Right.
For
But
one thing.
I'm assuming he's probably not talking about that.
Yeah, you'd be talking about Xbox Play Anywhere ultimately.
Right.
So obviously, you don't get the Play Anywhere version if you buy the Steam version, right?
Sure.
And Microsoft wants the Play Anywhere version to be popular because that's how they're growing their ecosystem is Play Anywhere. So, you know, for Microsoft, it's like we want people to use Play Anywhere rather than Steam or whatever, I suppose. So if you do, you can do it, but you have to use third-party drivers. You have to install Windows from an ISO, and you have to do all this stuff. And you also have to rely on the open source community to keep those drivers updated. Not just the drivers, but the software for adjusting the TDP and getting all the actual Steam Deck features. So it's a ball ache, is what I'm saying. But I suppose, like, I don't know. I would love to see Play Anywhere on Steam Deck. But maybe Microsoft's just like, we want to make our own Steam Deck, and But then again, it goes against the whole this is an Xbox thing, right? I thought we're all Xbox and we're all kumbaya now, so why is Microsoft competing? That's not something they do. Microsoft doesn't want to compete. What are you talking about? They just want to kumbaya it to everyone else. Maybe it's just a matter of, like, they're doing too much other stuff and they don't want to spread themselves too thin. I mean, one thing I know they're working a lot on right now is making sure Xbox Play Anywhere is, like, the experience is better, because it's still a bit of a mess, the PC app. Like, cloud saves indicator, there isn't one, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know. It's a good question. I'll try and find out something more concrete than that, but I don't know is the ultimate answer. Okay. I'm sure.
We got the big fluffy bunny. Hey guys, no question. Just my first time here and wanted to say appreciate you both in the amazing community. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, man.
Appreciate it.
We had a lot of new patrons since because we did a 15% discount for Black Friday, which I believe might have expired now. But we got a bunch of new patrons from that. So thanks to everyone who signed up. You guys are awesome.
Make sure to take advantage of your perks like the questions or listening to the podcasts early when we do them. And we're going to have to do 2 podcasts this week. Again, that's why I don't like doing Monday shows, because we're going to have to do a show on Friday. We'll be talking about Indiana Jones a lot and whatever else happens.
If I actually get around to playing it.
Well, you better. You got a few days to play some of it. Omen says, hope you both had a fun weekend. I recently bought a Backbone, and to my surprise, PlayStation does not allow any streaming to it unless you get the PlayStation branded Backbone. While I largely play xCloud games with it, I still wanted the option to stream PlayStation games if I wanted, so I had to return my Backbone for a PlayStation branded one. So now when people see me on a train playing an xCloud game, they'll think I'm playing a PlayStation game. So my question is this. Do you think it was a smart move for Sony to require Sony branding on devices to allow for game streaming? I didn't even know that was a thing. Did you?
I did not know that. That is weird, man. But I don't know if it's going to move the needle, but it comes back to that product-oriented mindset that Sony has that Microsoft doesn't. Microsoft has a sort of software and platform and cloud-oriented mindset where they just see the endpoint as incidental. They don't have a hardware product-oriented mindset. And this is why Sony does things like that, or why Apple does things like that, and Microsoft just doesn't. I think for a time when Panos Panay was there, Panos was pushing for that kind of experience, but Microsoft's philosophy, whether it's Phil Spencer or Satya Nadella, their philosophy is that the endpoint is just incidental, and that as long as the cloud stuff is good, then people will come. You can debate the merits of that. I think that mentality is naive to some degree, personally, but you can't argue with Microsoft's share price, and obviously, they know much better than me. So, yeah, I would like to see more Xbox branded peripherals for that purpose, but I also think there's a vanishingly small amount of people who actually do play those games on their phone right now. And Microsoft's probably prioritizing its efforts around the Asus ROG, the Lenovo Legion Go, and those kind of native experiences, I would think. while growing cloud slowly in the background. If there is ever a technological breakthrough that could
or
really
not
make
necessarily
that stuff
a
blow up.
technological breakthrough, but how about a pricing threshold, right? With the rumored tariffs that might hit next year, where Trump announced a tariff of 25% for Canada and Mexico and 35% for China. Where what if you run into a scenario where the tariffs make the console so expensive, or more expensive than they really should be, and then because of that, there's a barrier in between people buying the consoles, and game streaming becomes more thought of as a better way to play, simply because the hardware itself is priced out or too expensive for most, where you can stream games to your phone, you can stream games to your TV, you can do all that stuff. Like, what if it's that? Not necessarily a technical, logical thing, but a price impediment that makes like the first big shift.
Well, dude, there's an issue with that. The cloud will be hit by tariffs as well because all those GPUs come from China.
I suppose so.
So, just if demand for cloud went up, then Microsoft would have to scale up their cloud and conversely scale up their pricing. Dude, if those tariffs on China go through, nothing will escape. The entire global supply chain of everything runs through China. Everything. So, like, if you maintain those tariffs from, like, maybe 10 years and gave people 10 years of price paying, maybe eventually some manufacturing will come back to America. But Brexit was one of the things they always said about Brexit was, oh, that'll bring more stuff back to the UK. It didn't bring anything back to the UK. So it's sort of like a, will it help or won't it? Most likely it won't, but maybe that can, it's about getting some political concessions, I think, at the end of the day. I don't think it's really about having tariffs and maintaining them. It's like political negotiations. It's a political threat.
Sure, but I'm just saying, if they're implemented and the cost of the stuff increases, it's I'm sure it's something. Increase. I'm sure it's something that Nintendo and Xbox and PlayStation are monitoring, because if it's something that hits any of their current products, like, do you think PlayStation wants to sell a PS5 Pro for $900 or whatever it would be? I doubt it, because that would severely limit its how many people would want to buy it here in the number one gaming market. So it's just like, we need to see if they get implemented and what the damage is and how long they're implemented for. But if it's like a long term, like, I don't know, like, look at like this scenario. Like, we know the Switch 2 is coming early next year, right? There are reports that they're making millions of them. But in a hypothetical situation where the tariffs come in and China's hit with, say, an all-blanket one, because I believe electronics were exempt from some of the previous tariffs under his administration last time. But let's just say it's everything. And, like, Nintendo was going to sell this thing for $399, and then they're hit with, like, a tariff. Like, they're probably not going to be happy about having to sell it for, $500. And I would imagine that would affect their projections about how many people buy it, which then would affect, like, how many people then purchase the games associated with it, because that's all depends on how many people buy the systems. So could Nintendo
be very disruptive?
Could Nintendo be sitting there? Could Nintendo be sitting there and be like, let's wait? Maybe the reason they haven't announced the new Switch 2 or announced when, because, like, when you announce the Switch 2, I think you pretty much have to announce, like, when it's coming at this point, yeah? Mm-hmm. Maybe they haven't done it yet because they're waiting to see how this stuff plays out in the beginning of the year. And if they're forced to have to raise the price, maybe they just wait it out. And they're like, you know what, maybe instead of launching this at this higher price point, maybe we'll just wait and see if the tariff goes away, and then we can launch the product later on. I don't know. Is that something that, like, they talk about in the boardroom meetings about the best time to do all these things? Maybe.
No doubt. I mean, it weren't bluffing. He's done tariffs before. And yeah, electronics were exempt, but, like, Trump isn't exactly predictable for companies. So they have to take that threat real as a credible threat. I mean, why would he even say it if he didn't mean that he might do it? So yeah, it's definitely a credible threat. It's worth taking seriously, and if you are taking that seriously, then it's definitely going to hit your budget sheet. It's going to throw everything out of whack. You have to figure out how to make all those prices change. It'll affect the global economy, because like if everyone sells to America, everyone wants the American market. That's the big sexy market that everyone wants, right? And if your costs go up there, your costs go up everywhere. So, we can debate the merits and demerits of tariffs till the cows come home.
What if they adopted like a back in the day strategy where normally the consoles, like, remember when the consoles used to release first in Japan, and then you'd have to wait like a year before it would come to America?
Yeah.
Like, what if
we go back to that?
No, what if, like, say for example, what if Switch 2, hypothetically, tariffs are implemented, it would raise the price here significantly. What if they release the Switch 2 everywhere else in the world except the US? Like, let's launch it in Europe, let's launch it in Japan, let's launch it everywhere else, but we'll hold off and not launch it in the US. Is that something that could, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
I mean, they could, but the prices will still go up high in other countries because their costs will go up because they can't sell in the US.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's why everyone freaks out about tariffs.
I guess we need to wait and see what happens on that. But we have achievement. Could one of y'all talk to the people at Xbox to allow manual cloud saves? Sometimes in a hurry to get going, and I'll save a game on the Xbox, but when I fire up the game on the ROG Ally, it's a different save because for some reason it hasn't loaded to the cloud yet, which my Xbox is always connected and on even when off. It should be in the compatibility options like FPS Boost is. I was thinking File Update Cloud Kiosk, or FUCK for short. Microsoft probably won't like that, so there's also File Upload Continuity Keeper, which sounds more like a Windows program, which is also FUCK for short. Yeah, I've had a couple.
Really fucking funny.
I have seen a few people complain about this, like, be like, oh, I'm going to try out Starfield on the Xbox, and then quit out the Xbox version and to jump on the PC version, but their cloud save file isn't there yet.
Yeah.
So I sort of feel like that is something that needs to be fixed. Or
it sure is.
I don't know. It's pretty magical that it works at all. But then I think Ubisoft has a similar thing, and it works even better. Like, you could take your Assassin's Creed save from the PC and put it on the Xbox or put it on the PlayStation.
Well, dude, the benchmark is Steam. Like, every time I close a game on Steam, it says uploading saves to the cloud, saves uploaded, and that's it. Job done. I know it's saved, and now I can, and it's very, very quick. Practically instantaneous. And then I know I've got my save ready to go on my Steam Deck or wherever else. And I've bitched at Microsoft for this for a million years, and I've been told there's a prototype, so it's something they're working on. But it's like this is fundamental basics. Why does everything Microsoft take so long?
Because they're a gigantic company. That's why.
Gigantic company with all these different departments trying to work together on products that they're competing with flat, small startups on, which can do things a lot more quickly. But it's super annoying, man. Super annoying how long this is taking to get out the door.
We have BT Maverick with Super Chat. $5. Jez, what's your excitement level on the Steam Deck? What's your excitement level on the Steam Deck controller? 2 leaks. I know doorstop GPU Rand is too busy not seeing eye melting pad tracing to care.
I did see some things about the Steam Deck controller. I don't know that much about it. I haven't looked into it yet. I've just been so busy with Black Friday and stuff. But it is super interesting and cool that Valve's taking hardware more seriously now. I saw they've got like some new VR controllers they want to make too. I love that stuff. I love that Valve's getting into hardware. I think that's really exciting. But I don't know that much about it. But we'll see where it all goes. No, Rand's not interested. Unless maybe he is.
Nah, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I think that's everything.
You want to refresh the thread? Did you refresh the thread?
I'll refresh it to see if there's anything new. We'll see.
Sometimes there's a late question come
in. Nope. Anyways, that'll be the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on this Monday to listen to me and Jez ramble about whatever we wanted to talk about. And
WWE.
Yeah, we appreciate everyone who's been here, whether you're lurking or chatting, whether you're a Patreon, or whether you're listening to this later on one of the podcast apps. We love you all. And
yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
We'll be back on Friday. I'm sure I'll be talking in depth about Indiana Jones on that show and whatever else happens during this week. So until then, you know, you can always join the Patreon, patreon.com/XB2. If you're going to buy something from Manscaped, you can use the code XB2 from there to get 20% off and worldwide shipping. And we will see you again on Friday. So have a good rest of the week, and we'll see you in a few days. Later.
Take care, everybody.